Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Raids 4 video call with the wonderful Mod Arcane. He has graced us with his presence, and of course, the gentleman from a couple weeks ago, it must have been 2 weeks ago at this point, but we have the new Raids 4 reward iterations, and we are really excited to talk today, and we're going to have Mod Arcane obviously share some insights where he can about how the team decided on these new rewards, and just discussing DPS calcs, short for calculator, of course, or calculations.
Of course.
And yeah, we're gonna go down and just share our thoughts. And so I'm very excited. But let's do again just a brief introduction for those that maybe missed the first iteration. So let's start with Mod Arcane. Brief introduction of who you are. Maybe there are some people that are just, who is this guy?
Hi, I'm one of the game designers on Old School. I've been here for around 6 and a bit years now. Worked mainly on a lot of PVM updates, Araxor, DT2, TOA, X, Fosanis, and a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, I watched the last one of these, and I thought it was a good dynamic, and I kind of wanted to just get in on it. So here I am.
Awesome. Great to have you. Joe?
How's it going, guys? My name is JoeWatermelon. I stream on my Endgame Iron Man daily on Twitch, and I'm just starting to get into the YouTube side of things, where I'm actually editing episode 5 of my Endgame Iron Man series currently. But happy to be here. Appreciate Sae Bae for having us on.
Molgoatkirby.
Hey, Molgoatkirby here. I make guides on YouTube. I do kind of difficult PVM challenges and speedruns. I've been working on a lowest combat to GM series, so just a bunch of crazy stuff I do essentially.
All right, and I am Sae Bae, of course, if you're on this channel. Just, super passionate about the game in all aspects, and of course with Raids 4, I've just been really just obsessed with the whole space and just hearing out discussions on all social media, and very excited, obviously, to have this conversation today. Travag.
I'm Travag. Primarily make YouTube videos with the occasional streaming, mostly around guides and blog updates. Sort of the No Monkey waiting room before No Monkey puts out his video. I'm usually late, but see.
All right, Travis 42.
Hello, I'm Travis. I began streaming again on Twitch. Just a late game Iron Man, maxed GM, top 50 in EHB for Iron Man as well. So just kill a lot of bosses, mid-max DPS, things like that. So I got a lot of opinions on it.
Lovely. And Ziti Sauce.
Hello, I'm Ziti Sauce. I am an endgame Iron Man, mostly focused on PVM and clogging. Recently started making some YouTube videos, kind of a mixture of progress and then yapping videos sometimes.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, it's good to have you all, and we're going to just jump right into this bad boy. So if you guys want to follow along at home, we are going to be covering the latest iteration of the blog post, starting with the Ron Dash. So let's, one of the first things that was shared was just, how does flat armor work in the first place? And one of the conversations that we had in a couple weeks past with the same video call minus Mod Arcane was just our sort of perspective on why not make the shield also potentially deflect mage, like incoming mage attacks, or maybe if not being a flat armor against it, at least have it be charged with it. So they're kind of talking about some of that stuff. It sounds like the shield is still going to be rolling off, so when you deflect it back, it's going to be rolling off of your opponent's crush defense. And then, of course, they're talking about the Avernic. Potentially, there's a couple different choices here where we could maybe have the Avernic attached to it to add some strength. Maybe we just reduce the strength. Maybe the strength is fine. So I'm going to have Mod Arcane start us off here and just share maybe something that he and the team kind of came to the conclusion of with the shield, and whether or not Mod Arcane maybe has an opinion on, what the shield should be going forward.
Yeah, so obviously the original concept is just like, how do we make an offensive shield? And this is just kind of what we came up with. People have always liked the idea of having a cool shield to wear, and this is just an attempt at that. I think people resonate fairly well in the first iteration, but obviously had a few nitpicks here and there. And might have been not as clear as it should have been on this latest iteration, but the idea was to make it so it works against magic attacks. It's just that I think we want to clarify things more on our end, exactly how that is keyworded. I don't think we want flat armor to apply to magic, but we do want the run dash to work against magic. So we need to figure out how we actually word that internally, really. But yeah, the idea is that it would work against magic. So for all sense purposes, it's effectively better than it was proposed on the original blog. in terms of clarifying how it actually rolls on things. So it is supposed to be like a regular attack in terms of like it rolls against attack and accuracy, like it's just a standard attack kind of check there for accuracy. And then it rolls 0 to your max hit, and that depends on how much damage you've actually absorbed on those things. So it's kind of just like a standard, like little weenie attack, but obviously it's separate than your actual action delay. So it's not like it takes up an actual attack from your weapon or anything like that. It's a quick little bop with his shield, which should feel pretty good. Obviously, numbers aside, we might just need to tweak things as always, but I'd like to think it kind of accomplishes that. On the Avernic stuff, that was just kind of in response to player feedback of people being a little bit worried about Fear of Blood and like the Avernic carrying a big part of the GP per hour there. See if Avernic gets absolutely tanked because of this, because everyone's using the run dash where they're using the Avernic. Is that a problem for long term? People have different opinions on that. This was a proposal. I don't think people have resonated that much with it in terms of like attaching the Avernic to it or anything like that, or lowering the strength to preserve Avernic even further. So I imagine what we're going to be doing right now is kind of going ahead with like the original proposal in terms of like it is a 8 strength bonus, which is the same as Avernic. We don't lower it. We don't make any attachments or anything like that. For Avernic, and we just kind of see how it goes. And if TOB really suffers, maybe we need to do something about that long term. But hopefully, and somewhat optimistically, I think Avernic will still kind of have its place. Avernic still gives a lot of accuracy, and I hope that's relevant enough. But maybe the flat armor just trumps that. Maybe people will actually accept some slightly less accuracy for that like defensive bonus, because that might add up. That might add up, like that lack of damage you take to the point where you eat less food and get more DPS because of that, right? Like that might end up becoming a thing. But it's hard to really feel that out when it's just a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper, right? I think that's kind of where it's at right now. I don't know what people are kind of feeling like with the current proposal.
I have an interesting question. So, like, for example, I was trying to think of some places where you might use this, and we even kind of discussed, like, it could be interesting, like, on a dragon, like Vorkath, right? You go to Vorkath, instead of using the Avernic with your Dragon Hunter Lance, maybe use this thing. And then we were talking about how it's annoying, how the mage attack, it doesn't work. It does melee, it does range, but you're also going to get mage. But then I think, like, okay, well, the Dragon Fire, is that typeless? But if you pray mage, it reduces it. So is it really a mage attack? So does it work against all those attacks? Does it only work against the actual attack? So I'm still a little bit confused on where the line is drawn on if it would reduce it or charge it up, or how exactly it works.
Yeah, so I think if we were going to take it like really literally, like in terms of like how our code base is structured, like Dragonfire is like a completely separate line of command in terms of how that's all treated. So it probably wouldn't work on Dragonfire. And then Vorkath's a really good example because like he has his like prayer attack, he has like a venom attack, like he has a lot of attacks that aren't really like a mage or a range attack. Like how would that work? At the end of the day, we can make it do whatever we want in reality, but I think it not working on typeless stuff. I think it working on typeless stuff starts to raise a lot of weird questions because there's a lot of things that don't really feel like attacks that are typeless. Like when Leviathan does like his little screen shake and you take a bit of damage when he resets, like that's a typeless attack. Should it work on that? I feel like it being distinctly like range or mage or a melee attack is like a nice clean distinction for like the vast majority of cases. But I do agree that there's probably some weird attacks out there that are not actually coded as a ranged attack, but probably feel like a ranged attack as well. And it might be that we just need to go through that case by case and just maybe tidy them up or something like that.
It was just weird that if you pray mage, it actually does reduce the damage. So, like, is it considered a mage? Yeah, it is very weird.
Have you seen the table on the wiki of, like, how Dragonfire works?
I have. That's why I was like, I got to ask this question because I don't know. That's where I felt about it.
Yeah. Right now, I don't think it would. If we feel like that's a real big problem for the run dash, is like viability, we can always reassess that. But yeah, Dragonfire and some Dragonfire working against Prey Mage is probably a good example. Maybe that should just be one of the exceptions that Run Dash gets, that it works against Dragonfire attacks.
So just to confirm, it absolutely right now, it is the case that incoming magic attacks will also be having a flat armor effect and charging. Okay. I think my biggest concern is if you charge up a shield fully and you release it and it does a 0, I'm just gonna be so tilted. Like it's just gonna be one of the most tilting experiences, having built up all that and then releasing it for a 0. I'm just gonna be like, all right.
Yeah, I think that's something we kind of just need to play with, and like we'll probably start prototyping and fiddling with it. And it might be that we just decrease how much max charge it has, and then like double the amount of damage and accuracy it gets, so it charges up faster and you get like the same payout. I don't think you'd want to go like too far. Like imagine if it was like 3 range attacks and then it's fully charged for 20 damage. Like that'd be insane. So like trying to figure out how slow it can ramp and feel, or how fast it can ramp and still feel good before it becomes like oppressive, and like the vice versa. Like there'll be a sweet spot somewhere, and I imagine we won't even get it right on launch, even after we play test and fiddle with it a lot. We'll still try and keep it in the rough viability that people are kind of expecting, but there might be a lot of feels issues to kind of iron out. And I think Soul Reapers acts as a good example of that, right? Where mathematically, I think Soul Reapers actually fits in a decent spot for where it is, at least in my opinion. But it's obviously had loads of gripes and like practicality issues that we've just like iterated on again and again and again.
Yeah.
And it might be just in the same kind of boat there. Hopefully we're a bit faster on that than the Soul Reaper.
I think one of the most interesting things about this shield is the fact that if it were the case that it does do a 100% attack, if it's just a guaranteed release of damage on something, I think at that point you could actually tone back even the strength of the shield, because I think just that ability alone, at least in PVM, I don't know what it would do to PvP. I'm sure it would break it, but in a PVM situation, like just being able to guarantee 24 damage to something of your choice is such a powerful thing to be like wielding onto you, that I think you could even tone back the strength of the shield and still have it be an incredibly useful thing for some situations where you just want something to die instantaneously. It's 0 tick, just boom, you're off to killing the next thing. And I think that niche of it is so cool, but as soon as it's not guaranteed, it just kind of loses that a little bit, and then the strength of the shield does need to be raised.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, are you guys doing the beta test worlds for all the raids uniques? Because you mentioned, getting them right balance-wise out the gate, and I think we did that for TOA. I remember that 2-tick staff that ended in like a 6-tick thing. Any plans to do that again, or?
I don't really know. Well, currently there's no plans for it, to be fully transparent. There's no plans to have a beta one. I do think there's value in it. I think the betas that we've had historically have generally not really net that much feedback or value from like a design point of view. We don't really feel like we get a lot out of it, and it requires quite a lot of effort to set up. So we've tried to have like a lot more like NDA groups to just like talk about ideas. But I agree, like something like a Run Dash probably does have quite a lot of a feels component. And I do think that would be a good example of something that feeling it out would be really valuable. But it's hard to justify whipping up an entire beta just for this like one reward, effectively. I'm hoping that we can play test it a lot and give a lot of eyes internally, and then if it's not quite right, we iterate on it fairly fast.
Sure.
Post launch.
Yeah. I don't even know if I'm for or against that. I just remembered we did it for TOA and was wondering if that was going to be the case here. But
on the point of like damage and whatnot, I think it's not just like the ability to build up stacks and what the right number is there, but this is rolling off crush accuracy, right? So even if you find a situation where this is ideal, like, oh, I'm getting attacked and I'm taking a ton of chip damage, it's like, what if the monster just has like a ridiculous crush defense? Like you're very unlikely to hit. Just looking at the monster list currently, that's not totally the case. Like a lot of monsters, Vardorvis, Verzik, like, they're slash weak, but they're not totally strong against crush. Like you're probably still going to land. But there are probably going to be cases where we'll need to see how it would feel in some of that other content. Like Duke is a weird one. When you're talking about like chip damage, like Duke's attack, is that like, because you do protect to reduce its damage.
2 components, right?
Is that typeless damage or is that a melee damage?
That's a melee hit.
Okay, so that's cool. So that'll absorb there. But he's got ridiculous crush defense. Like you're not going to thing very often. So it's kind of like that other lever that needs to be considered. How accurate should this thing be? Is it 100% accurate? Is it respectable crush? Is it, improved accuracy?
I've got 2 general thoughts on that. So one big thing that designers generally really want, and something we're quite like precious about, is like the ability to actually like have enough levers to balance things. And if this thing always had 100% accuracy and always hit 24 on absolutely everything, we effectively have 0 ways to balance that without just arbitrarily making it do less damage. Like it's just invisible, right? It doesn't interact with the visible systems that the game provides. So accuracy is one of the very few levers that we have to really work with that. and that's kind of why we kind of want to preserve that. There's still a world where we make it really, really accurate in reality. Like maybe we should double the amount of accuracy it has, because maybe it's averaging around 75%. Maybe we'll be completely happy if it averaged around 85 or 90%. That still gives us a levers to go like, actually, we really don't want it to be used on this boss, and we can give it a bunch of crush defense or whatever. Unlike things like Duke and like any specifics encounters, I'm completely happy and open to the idea of just like rebalancing monster stats. Like there's also something that we wanted to have in the blog for yesterday is I kind of want to like lower a Nex's crush defense by like 5 or something, just to make it the lowest. So then the Mega Rare actually gets all of its rerolls on Nex. So I think the Breaker being really good at Nex is a perfect example of that. And like, I'd be fine for like, we see the things like Duke, like there's a great example of the Rondash being like, this should be really good here. It's a perfect boss for it. The stats should stop it being so. Is there any good reason to keep it high crush? No, getting lower, right? And then we all of a sudden that use case is back. And the thing that's happened a lot when like T-Bow was first released, like there's so many stat rebalancing because like T-Bow is just a bit whack on launch as well. And I'm completely open to exploring things like that when cases kind of get brought up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think revisiting old content has been amazing. That used to be such a big talking point of like when you'd release new content, people are saying, well, they're neglecting old content, and now we're kind of just getting the best of both worlds. So I think that's great, re-examining the old metas.
One question I have that's probably not the most pressing thing, but I feel like to me it is, just because RuneScape is so pure. But the special attack orb, I guess there was some discussion about like how that would get put in place. And personally, I lean towards having a second orb would be the best thing. But obviously that's like, you can't put a bunch of new orbs all in the game. It's a very like important large part of the game that's coming out. And then I think it was mentioned in the blog that the DFS would also share this special attack orb. One question I have is like, would the SRA also use it, or are we like creating this new category of kind of like secondary like special attacks that don't use your normal special attack alongside this update? Because I could see other updates coming out with unique passives in the future as well that could use some kind of similar methodology to the Rondash. And I think the SRA is a good example of that, where it's like it currently takes over the special attack orb, which is a little bit odd. So yeah, I know the team isn't fully at a decision of like what exactly to do there, but I'd be interested in people's thoughts of like splitting the orb versus using a second orb, or like what other weapons could use this orb as well.
Yeah, I think SRA is like kind of fine. I think taking over the orb to do something unique is generally like landed okay. Obviously, welcome thoughts. I think the DFS probably could just be reworked to work like SRA in the sense that like it has its own kind of special attack system, so it can just repurpose the orb. The reason why the Rondash needs to do something special is because you can have the Fang and the Rondash equipped, right? Which special attack does it use? And we need to basically figure out a solution to that. I'm not overly fond of an entirely second orb yet. I don't really have that many good ideas for it. Like, I think the bare minimum, making it so it'll take over the orb if your main hand weapon doesn't have a spec. So just like that's convenient. If you do have two things that have a spec, maybe you're just in your combat interface, where you can select the styles, like the bar itself is split up. There's just 2 bars, and we don't actually bother with a second orb. That obviously loses some quality of life if you wanted to actually have 2 orbs on the bar without having to open the interface. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's the lesser of 2 evils. I'm kind of just going to give it to a designer and go like figure something out, basically, like explore different options and see what you come up with, because there's a lot of smarter people on the team than I am, and they'll probably come up with something more creative than I can. But yeah, there's obviously a problem there to be solved.
I'm a massive fan of the 2 orb system. I think going forward as well, there's so much room for additional things, like additional shields having some type of effect. And I just think just dividing it now and just kind of future proofing it is just like a really cool system. So like you always have your classic sort of spec orb, and then anything that's additional, like a shield, like a DFS. I mean, the fact that a DFS is probably going to be also changed alongside the Rondash. I mean, you can always have another spec weapon there, and that's just going to be confusing to share the same orb with it. And I also think this is a separate thing, so I'll just briefly touch on it, is like the idea of skilling tools having special attacks that aren't associated with running to your pool back and forth. It just sounds really cool to be able to actually like skill to charge up your weapon to unleash some powerful blow, to like get a bunch of rocks or get a bunch of resources or just that could be using that secondary orb that we use. So it's already kind of future proofed in the game. It kind of allows for that other side of the game to get some love as well. That's not just relying on a timer that can be so abused by a pool or a Narda altar.
Yeah, I didn't even think about what Ziti just said in that scale where this is kind of opening up an avenue for a whole different type of weapon. I will say I haven't used it much, but I get annoyed when I'm using the Soul Reaper and I can't see what my normal spec is at currently.
Yeah, it's not great.
So I would love a second orb, but that is something I feel like you guys would have a lot of people upset about too. So I empathize with trying to roll that out. But yeah, I would.
It might be that.
Yeah,
it might be that we prototype it and the double orb is just the best option, right?
Yeah,
and maybe that is just the most elegant one. It's just obviously not something we do lightly, adding an extra orb to that interface.
I was gonna say, is there any thoughts of like, because at the moment it feels like a lot of bosses require two-handed weapons is like the BIS for many bosses. So is there any thoughts of like, will this Rondash be rebalanced to be strong enough that it can actually overtake like Soul Reaper or a Scythe in some cases where they have like a lot of chip damage? Or will it just be purely like a budget option for people who like can't afford Scythe or Soul Reaper in general? That's what I was wondering about.
I think it's a big ask for the shield to make something like the Fang compete with a Scythe. There will probably be some niche cases where that is the case, but I don't think it's going to be doing that across the board, really. I think there is an interesting conversation to be had on like the two-handed scape of the future. Like everything is gravitating towards being two-handed. It's convenient, it's less switches, the Mega Rares already do it, like, etc., etc. I do see that as a really weird, slow-coming problem in the future, but we'll tackle that when we get to it in reality, and maybe it just means that Race 5 Mega Rare should be one-handed and start a new trend. I don't know. But people just love two-handed weapons, like they're just generally cooler.
Maybe eventually, while still taking up the inventory slot, we can somehow attach an offhand to a main hand. So we get the 8-way switch, but we take up the inventory slot. I just don't like the Avernic being thrown everywhere in my inventory.
Yeah.
But on the point of the spec orb, I wanted to bring up, because we're talking about what's the, another orb. Something I'd want it if we did go with a second one, or even a single one. I think it needs to feel really good, because in the Rondash case, it's a 0-tick attack, right? I want to be able to click those two things like in one tick easily. If it's like I have to like move a certain direction to be able to click both, and then I like miss it or something like that, that's gonna feel a little awkward. So whatever the iteration is, I hope is something that's gonna feel satisfying to like do a Void Waker, do a Rondash, click, super quick.
Yeah, I can see that, definitely.
Maybe this is a bad idea, but you guys just introduced the buckets of sap for secret arrows, and you like have to click on your own character to activate it. And that could be something too. Like instead of clicking on the mob, you click on your character to do a spec. I'm sure some people would hate that, but it is another route to go if you don't want to do an orb.
I'm trying to imagine just like DDing with somebody and you like wasn't sure if you did it and you click your guy and you
that would be tough.
on something like what the hell is going on.
Yeah, I think that tech for the Bloodwood trees only really works because you're stood still and kind of locked in place.
Yeah.
I don't think that would cleanly follow your character.
Yeah.
I think I see a potential issue with the second orb, with it being like a Gmaul with the Rondash if in PKing. And I'm not a PKer, but just I could see the skill gap. Like the skill gap right now of like you do your Void Waker and then you Gmaul. I mean, I don't PK and I don't think I could do it that accurately and skillfully, but like there just being another orb right there and you just click one orb and the other orb and it's just like, psh, psh, like, I don't know, that might be a little bit too easy.
Gmaul's
for
a two-handed
PKers.
weapon, technically, so you'd have to switch back to the shield. And I'm also curious.
No, I'm not saying would you Gmaul at all. I'm saying you just Void Waker and Rondash at the same time. It's like very low skill level to do that, to just click both orbs. Like, meanwhile, to Void Waker that switch to Gmaul, like, I mean, is probably more difficult.
This shield, regardless in PvP, is just going to be the most broken, just destroyer of it. It's just a free 24 damage. Like, here you go. Just whatever your combo was, add 24 to it, basically, if you have a single-handed weapon. Like, I try not to even think of the PvP side, because in my view, it can't work in PvP unless we get to a point where PvP deaths are not taken as seriously. And that's a whole separate thing with the PvP cover I'm not going to touch on whatsoever. But like right now, if you're running around the wilderness and some guy just has a fully charged shield from somebody else and he's like, now I'm just going to Void Waker Gmaul into the Rondash. It's just like, what is going on here? You know, this is way too explosive. So I don't know if Mod Arcane, do you have any insight as to whether or not this is going to work in PvP? Like, is it meant to work in PvP? And is it going to deactivate when you get off another target, for example?
I think, as always, we kind of just default to it'll work in PvP, because I think going in and just disabling an entire reward from working in PvP is probably not too great. But obviously, we're going to have to monitor it and figure out exactly how it fits in a healthy way. If it ends up just being really degenerate, then we'll have to make tweaks.
Sounds like
as much as we hate like band-aid solutions, like Wildy is kind of full of them, and if we have to make it so you can't do 2 specs back to back with a run dash and into Void Waker and there's like a tick or 2 delay, like we can explore things like that. Obviously, like you said, the reset duration, maybe it should reset fairly quick in PvP, right, compared to general PVM areas. There's a lot of things we can do, like mitigate it, but we'll have to kind of see how it goes, really.
Yeah, maybe you can't special attack and then immediately use it, but then that feels weird.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're getting near the end of the Rondash conversation. I just want to make sure I understand myself. How exactly does it get charged? Is it every attack you get 1 charge? Is it every 2 damage you mitigate you get 2 charge? How does exactly how it works?
I guess 1 charge per damage mitigated. So if you took 5 damage of magic, that's not going to get reduced to 3. You gain 2 charge.
Okay. Just making sure I understand exactly how it
probably will have some soft cooldown, so you don't just sit in the middle of like 500 monkeys and you're sat there spamming the button, right? Like they'll have something like that going on, because that'd be ridiculous. But hopefully not to the point where it interferes with any legitimate gameplay.
When earlier in the call you mentioned, like in the blog here, it says that you're thinking about 2 ideas when it comes to the strength bonus. One of them is putting it down a bit, but then leaning into the Rondash's identity further, which I love that. Like, that's the direction that I would want to go with something like this. Let it be good at what it's good at without it being just as strong, without encroaching at all on the Avernic. But now you're saying that the front runner is probably keeping it as is, +8 strength, no attachment escape, no bumping down. And yeah, I'm waiting for the potential comments and stuff just to see that, just because it's different from the blog. But I do want to talk about that more, because I absolutely love the first suggestion by comparison, but I understand it's probably more difficult to balance.
You like the Avernic attachment suggestion?
No. I like I like this being more, its identity being more around the armor or the damage, not around the strength bonus. Yeah,
sure.
I felt the same about that. I like the whole just lean into the identity, and then the whole 8 strength issue isn't an issue. You can like remove it if it's doing more of like the chip damage stuff. If it's got more DPS, then you'll need the Avernic. And now it's like you only use it if you're actually taking chip damage. It's like a separate item and less overlap with the Avernic. So I do like that as well.
We did actually originally have it like that, but we were too worried that people would just say it's mega niche and it's this end game raid reward and it should be more generally prevalent, right? So this is kind of like a weird alternative to Avernic, but obviously has the little bit that it pushes over Avernic in certain situations. Obviously, you're suggesting we pull it back significantly in a lot of areas, but obviously push it harder to do more niche ones. But that was the worry in reality, is that people would see it as being too niche. But yeah, we did originally have it like that.
Yeah, I think originally when it wasn't going to be mitigating incoming magic damage, I think the 8 strength definitely was necessary. But now that it is going to be charging up with magic attacks, absolutely, I think it could have 0 strength. And just the fact that it has 2 flat armor already opens up. I mean, this is going to be really good for anybody that doesn't have a mega rare going into like Vardorvis and stuff. Like, just that constant negation of damage is huge. It really is. And then just being able to charge back stuff, I think, is already really just leaning into that niche beautifully.
Yeah, I agree, but I also don't think it has to be binary. Like, if the balance ends up being giving this thing 4 strength bonus and giving it whatever chip, and that's what makes it feel good, that works as well. I think generally, though, it's that direction down, somewhere between 0 and 7.
It's a hard thing to calc, but have you guys done it with 8 strength bonus and it's just overtaking the Avernic too many places? Or that didn't seem that crazy to me, just as like a flat number without the accuracy. I felt like it was a good trade-off, just getting rid of the accuracy and you get the flat armor and the extra attack.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay.
There's a lot of-
personally, I'm okay with either way, having the strength or not having. I think no matter what, the shield's going to be really cool. And
I was gonna say, I think there's a lot of places where if you pray correctly, it's 0 damage. In which case, a Vernix just going to strictly be better. But then any places where
Right.
you're taking some damage, I think with the +8 strength bonus, that makes Rondash strictly better. So I do feel like it strikes a pretty good balance.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
And ultimately, it's one-handed, so you still have the two-handed weapons that are going to die.
Yeah.
Even Maiden,
yeah.
who gets fully drained, this would be better, right? Likely than a Vernic. So it'd be great for people who don't have a scythe, right?
You don't really get hit a lot of Maiden, right?
It chips you
Yeah,
with
no.
the little tornado stuff.
Yeah, like
right?
one
It's really
person,
slow
right?
attacks though.
If you
and
let the
it's-
crabs in, though.
one person can bring the shield, and
if you let the
One
crabs
person can
in.
bring the shield who doesn't have a scythe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the strat. You let the crabs in, let it go
Yeah.
faster, and there you go.
Tech.
perfect. All right. I think we should move on. There's obviously so much more we could talk about with the shield, but I think we covered a lot of it. Unless anybody has any pressing issue before we move forward.
Overall, happy
Love-
though? Like, still
Yeah.
good?
Love that
Yeah.
it's working with Mage. It had like 0 use case before, and this is a lot better.
Alrighty, Ascension crossbows. These bad boys, again, like it was stated in the blog, like pretty much across the board, people loved them. Didn't really have many gripes with them. I think the biggest gripe that I see, and me personally, is just the fact that it only works with 2 gem tips. And I'll just quickly share, because I really do feel like the Onyx tips are hardly ever going to be used. And I personally just believe that we should just have Ascension bolts. And what those Ascension bolts are just has a piercing effect similar to the diamond thing that can be perfectly balanced. And then those bolts just are installed instantly with a diamond effect. So we don't even need to do any gem tip stuff, because I know like balancing those is going to be really difficult. And let's be honest, who's ever going to be using Onyx tips on these and spending, when you're shooting them at 2 ticks, it's going to just be the most expensive thing ever for barely any healing. And I doubt it's going to get any additional strength bonus either.
Is it crazy to believe though that like a loot table could give Onyx bolt tips though? Like they could be increasing the source at which we're getting tips, right? The raid itself could have it as a normal drop as well. Just as like a counter argument, it's less about the Onyx, more about the tips, right?
No,
Well,
but you can always
there's
sell
the-
those. Like it's always going to be
Yeah,
GP.
There's
like,
the base
Yeah.
alch value
Yeah.
that they're
Yeah, but
always
you know,
gonna be
instead of
worth
getting
that.
the ruined plate body drop, you know, you're getting the Onyx bolt tip drop. But to be fair, I'm in the same opinion where I think I even would prefer these be pretty much 1 bolt only.
Mhm.
But I just wanted to bring that up. I think them introducing an Onyx bolt, I feel like there's got to be some level of understanding of like, well, we probably got to up the sources here, because no one is gonna. I mean, rich people will, but you know, the average player, Iron Man's not going to break down an Onyx tips or go farm Corp.
I think the issue is there are a lot of sources right now, but it would be choosing to fire them instead of choosing to alch them. Unless you guys had plans to lower the alch value, which I hate. Please don't do that. You're always going to alch it or sell it, unless it's way better than diamonds. At least I always would.
Yeah, they'd have to significantly up the healing effect so that it like becomes basically blood shard like or higher, where it's like now this is now the range blood shard basically. Then I can see it actually being useful for people that are just giga rich and don't need the GP anymore. But I'm still at the point where it simplifies it in my head to just not have bolt tips whatsoever with these new bolts and just keep them a standalone thing with a piercing effect. But
I can give some perspectives. So, one big thing is that we kind of fundamentally think that bolt effects are crossbows things. And having crossbows start to pull away from bolt effects, in our eyes, is kind of reminiscent of powered staffs pulling away from spells. And I think players already feel a bit iffy on that. As much as powered staffs was kind of a necessary evil because spells were just clunky, and just felt really bad, and this is just a way to make magic relevant, and it has succeeded in that. We're a little bit worried that this kind of just very quickly pivots crossbows to just being just thematic and like not an actual like identity of like a weapon type. That's why we have bolt effects still. However, we didn't want to have all the bolt effects for 2 main reasons. One, rubies are a fucking nightmare. Like they're an absolute nightmare to bounce around, and they just made us not even want to have the crossbows because rubies are just ridiculous. So we do need to probably do a bit of a rebalance around that at some point. We've stayed as much on the sweep up, is like we kind of want to tackle bolt effects as a whole. And doing a bunch of ball effects on, but every single ball effect on these crossbows and then having to rebalance them just makes it even more complicated. So it like just simplifies it for now, and we think that the reward just fundamentally doesn't need it anyway. The second reason why we didn't want to do more bolt effects is that it started to make it feel like a mega rare. Like having this like new bolt type and like the 10 different bolt effects or whatever there are. If we were, especially if we were going to go for like them being new bolt effects, like oh rubies on these bolts are different, whatever. It very quickly started to feel like this is like a mega rare. Like it's got 10 new unique effects or whatever. This is crazy. So we're like, okay, what's the minimum amount of bolt effects we can add without with it still feeling justified? Probably around 2, and the base ones are okay as well. You don't have to use the bolt effects in reality. And out of the 2, like what are the most appropriate ones to pick? And we just ended up being with Diamond and Onyx. Diamond because they're just kind of feel like a staple. They're, like for bolts, like they're like ultra reliable in a lot of ways if you do ignore rubies, and feel like fairly safe across the board. And Onyx was just kind of like this is the luxury pick. Like no one's going to realistically be spamming these, but there will be a use case where all the healing that this gives you is relevant. There definitely will be a place for that. It's going to be niche, and again, it is a luxury, but that's just kind of its identity. I don't think it needs to be something that is spammed everywhere, fundamentally. Especially for Iron Man, obviously, that's an entirely separate thing. That's the logic. You're welcome to disagree with it, but that's what we went in with.
Would you be open? Maybe this is a bad idea, but would you be open to enchanting the bolts just without the gem tips part? Like you get the Onyx bolt enchant, but just without adding the Onyx bolts, or is the idea to sync Onyx bolts into it?
Interesting.
I feel like generally we benefit when we like integrate our game systems together. So having this like weird thing like circumvent it feels a bit unnatural. We can experiment with ideas. Like if we did really want to make it so people were firing Onyx bolts, theoretically we could make it so these bolts have a lower out value, and then we just drop you a bunch of them. And theoretically we could do that. I don't know if that's actually a good idea in a lot of ways. I think a lot of players would call us out saying this feels a bit weird.
Yeah.
But theoretically we could do that. But I'm in the camp of like just firing regulars or diamonds is probably okay.
What about
Okay.
when are we going to get the 900k alk value Zenite tips? You know, that just have a
I'd love to introduce like new gems and new tips, and we did like, think about that for this as well, but it just felt in an inappropriate time to do it. Like I'd rather just introduce a new gem and just roll that out across the game, right? New teleport jewelry if required, new bolt tips, like everything, right?
That sounds awesome.
I have one more thing as well. Somebody on Reddit actually mentioned where you're chucking crossbows and they like boomerang back to you. That was just posted. I think.
The hammers.
The thrown axes.
The thrown
right?
axes. That was it.
Axes,
Oh, that was really cool.
Yeah, that was just awesome because I feel like it already has its standalone thing where it doesn't even have to deal with gem tips. And
save it for the Fremenic raid. Save it for the Fremenic raid.
True. I want to see that so bad. And it could just be charged with law runes. Somebody in the comments was saying it could be tossed back thematically with telekinetic grab, so it's like every single one has to be charged with like a law rune, so it has some charges going on. You're just flinging them back, and you see them coming back. That'd be so sick. I'd love that.
That's funny.
I mean, when you add bolt effects, you know, diamond bolts and onyx bolts, they have extra damage to them. Like, not only are you getting the effect of the piercing of, you know, you negate their armor, or you're getting the healing, you're actually getting more damage as well. And it looks like onyx bolts give more 20%, while diamonds give 15. So it's almost like not only are you getting the healing doing onyx, and I know I'm trying to think of the places that you would use this, right? Like you're going to use this at Inferno, right? And it sounds like a great use case over, especially them being expensive or anything like that. A lot of people, their first cape, you know, they're going to be wanting to use that. That makes a lot of sense to me. But then when I think about, you get more damage, especially because they have low defense in there. You're going to get more damage by using the onyx bolts. I just hate having like a feel bad, like I actually don't get the max DPS. And I know it's a very little thing because it's only when it procs, but if I'm not using the onyx bolts, meanwhile, like as an iron, that's basically impossible. I don't know. That feels a little bad to me, personally.
Yep. I get it. Do you feel like the way we balance like dragon darts and stuff? Or do you feel like you can actually upkeep those these days?
I can upkeep those. I can.
I know that's historically been a problem for endgame Iron Man, is upkeeping like dragon ammunition, especially like speedrunning and stuff.
No, I think the way you guys have done like Vardorvis, drop them, how Duke's doing the arrows, and you just keep them coming. Every update I've noticed, like with the Venators, you know, it's coming. With the Mega King, it's coming. So like it's you've been able to like you've kind of like kept it at like, oh, I only have a few thousand left, but like it never feels like I have none as a late game. But
do you
maybe
feel like
some
you
people
can't
use
get
it more.
Onyx bolts, or is it just because you just don't want to like spend the money, right?
Well, here's the problem. I killed like 5,000 corp, had 30,000 bolts, and I sold them all, so I'm upset now. Okay, that's the problem.
This is a
bro.
Travis
Those,
problem.
those bolts had already been got. To make your matters worse, those bolts are already kind of gone, right? These are new bolts, so you need the tips, and you can't take tips off of bolts, right? So
True.
No.
those bolts were-
Oh, they were. You're right.
yeah, that's what I mean. So
Oh,
those
that's
are
even
already gone
worse.
in reality.
That was even
So-
worse.
I guess,
see.
yeah, the equation is like dragon arrows are much better than they were. But if each dragon arrow is worth 10k, would people be using them or would they be alking them? Because I always need GP for all the other charge stuff, runes and all that. And I do feel like I would end up alking them a lot of the time, or a lot of people would, at least if you're not into speedrunning. And so I think that's the added variable that might make this a little bit different. Because I agree, just hitting less because you don't have access to the bolts does feel kind of bad, but it is kind of an iron due to.
Vast majority of situations, diamonds are going to be better, if not relatively similar to Onyx DPS. Like the ignoring like defense effects of diamonds is pretty relevant in reality. So like generally they're going to be like very, very similar, and you're not going to have that. In some niche situations, I'm sure Onyx will pull ahead, and if that does become a massive issue, I'm sure we could pull like just the damage buff off Onyx down if it really wanted to, so you didn't have that. Personally, on the perspective like Iron Man and Endgame and stuff like that, if it's like you feel bad because you're losing money from it, I think that's just peak Iron Man. That's your decision making.
Sure.
From the perspective of, I feel like I do not have agency to obtain said resource, I do think that's something that the Iron Man benefit would benefit from. And that's kind of why we've tried to supplement like that with Dragon Arrows, Dragon Darts across the game, because that felt like you had nothing you could realistically do to just get more Dragon Ammunition, right? And we've tried to supplement that. In my ideal world, every single resource a player could go out of their way to grind for specifically, and they would get a good amount of that back, right? You spend an hour just doing one activity that only gives you Dragon Darts, and you got like 10 hours worth of Dragon Darts. I would be completely fine with that. The problem is, it's like we can't have an activity you spend an hour and you get like 10 hours worth of Dragon Darts, Dragon Arrows, Rune Ore, gold, all the runes, like absolutely everything, right? We need to like spread it out a lot, and then that ends up making it so every individual activity doesn't feel like it gives you enough of a specific thing to feel satisfied with, right? So I would love to have like loads of these like individual activities that just give you loads of a certain resource, whether it's Onyx Bolt tips or whatever else, right? Onyx Bolt tips probably get more complicated because there's direct GP associated with it, right? It's not just bolt tips, it's not just Dragon Arrows or whatever. So yeah, if you do feel like as an Iron Man, you don't have the agency to obtain a resource, I completely empathize with that. And I think that is a genuine problem. It's just not a very easy problem to solve when there's like hundreds of these resources.
Yeah, that was my only gripe with it. And it's not really a gripe. You know, I love them. I think they're going to be super cool. I am interested, though. Like, it's one inventory slot, right? Like, it's not like the one inventory slot's going to have both the crossbows in it, right?
Yeah, it's a two-handed weapon. So it's not, there's not an offhand crossbow. It's single edged. You have to get both of them now.
Yeah, did we talk about the inventory?
It'll be like
did we talk about how they interacted with the quiver last time? We had news of that, didn't we? How the new bolts interacted with the quiver? Or like, will they be able to go in the quiver and get the strength bonus and all that?
They should.
Yeah, you see, you can put the bolts in the quiver just like any other bolt, and it'll use it from the quiver, so you'll gain the extra accuracy and stuff.
These felt like pretty much no real change.
Yeah.
And honestly, the way Mod Arcane just described it, I'm getting a little bit more okay with the idea that there is just two sort of solutions. Like, one is like the super rich route using the Onyx tips, and like imagine doing an Inferno run where you're using these bad boys instead of your blowpipe and using Onyx tips, so those like really rich people are just constantly healing up like that. I think Inferno speed running with Onyx tips with these would just actually sounds really exciting and cool. It just means a lot less additional healing that you need to do.
Get ready.
It feels like that's where it all. It feels like that's the main place that's going to be used. If you're a first caper, or not even a first caper, speedrunners too. I don't know. I think it might shake up that it's better DPS than the diamond, only just because they have such low defense that the piercing on them. But the melees have good defense, so maybe not. Maybe I take it back. I don't know.
Probably still gonna T-bow the majors, right?
Yeah.
So you crossbow the rangers. I think you'd probably crossbow the meleers as well. They're not that high defense. Obviously, like
Right now
and things like that.
Right now they scythe the meleeers, so I don't know if this would be enough. Yeah. Which it might. And there are some Inferno speedrunners that are a little bit like worried that like right now they love the idea that they do the blowpipe into the scythe and everything. And really at the end of the day, the fastest Infernos is using melee as much as possible, min-maxing that. To take that away, I feel like would take a lot away from the speedrunners if it just became you range everything and don't melee anything. So
Zeal
they were a little
re-pushes that, right? Yeah.
I think that's something I was going to bring up to it, that it's going to do that. So
Excited to touch on that.
Zeal's just we love Zeal.
So there have been I think a couple of you that haven't touched on the Ascension crossbows. Do you have any input, or should we move on?
I'll just throw in
We'll have Ziti and then Molgoat.
I'll just throw in a fleeting plea for maybe Sapphire Bolts would be cool to add in just a little bit more diversity, because that has a really, really niche use case at Muspa.
Yeah.
And that could just be like another like small little area that could be used for the new crossbow. But
I'd love that. Then my only reservation is like you do that one and then maybe you want to do another one, and like, are we doing a bolt effect just for one boss that you theoretically wouldn't be grinding after raids 4 anyway? Like regular progression? Like, I get it. I feel like it'll come in the future. Like, I definitely think like we're gonna add multiple bolts once we get to the rework, and that should be fine long term, hopefully.
Yeah.
You restore prayer from Sapphire Bolts? That might be a weird line to go to. I don't know. That could be too powerful.
I actually didn't know that. That's cool.
I didn't know that either.
I think they're only balanced because they're generally quite weak. But maybe Dragon stuff.
The attacker restores 1/8 of this amount of prayer points. There's something with it that you get prayer points.
Does it only work in PvP? There are some bolt effects that only work in PvP.
It might be.
No, I think I saw Verf doing his fight caves, and he was using it in PVM and getting prayer back from the mages.
I think that works.
I don't know. Oh my god, I just got a Visi in game.
You did?
Oh, grass.
Yeah. It's not what I wanted.
Yeah, I have no idea. Bolt effects is confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be a nightmare.
PVM, 27.5% with hard completion, 1/10 of the target's range level, 1/8 of the amount of prayer points, 1/80th of the enemy's range level rounded down. Jesus fucking Christ, what is going on?
So easy.
No one even knows.
There's even more going on down there. Like,
that's not even the worst one. There's some of them that are so obscure and like they only work in PvP and do effectively nothing. And I'm like,
we're probably sleeping on some insane tech that just nobody has even bothered to like calculate. It's like, nah, I'm just not even gonna look at this wiki page.
Hey, look at this one, Jade Bolt Effect. 6% chance of triggering Earth's Fury, which results in the bots knocking their target to the ground for 8 ticks, although agile opponents may resist this. What does that mean?
That's Andrew Gower.
You tell us, bro.
Does it roll off of the opponent's agility level?
No, wasn't that like a newer one?
Target's agility level.
That's crazy.
Wait, that was the newer one, wasn't it?
I think
with the silver jewelry.
Old.
No, the jade, topaz, and whatever. Isn't that newer? Opal. I don't know.
guess newer in what perspective? 2018 is
when Dragon Bolts came out. I'm pretty sure when Dragon Bolts came out, they came out. I could be wrong. Honestly.
Oh, you could use them on blue right bolts before, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Apparently.
Obviously.
I was gonna say, any thoughts to? Because now we're gonna have ruby bolts for ZCB, ascension bolts for this, and arrows for T-bow. Any thoughts of like storing the new bolts in the crossbow or something to make it a little less operative inventory?
That's what I was talking about before. Was like another quiver spot.
I think there's multiple thoughts on this. I think putting them in the crossbow is obviously the most parallel to blowpipe, right? But if you wanted to bring multiple bolts for that, that'd probably feel weird, and then you're losing your accuracy bonus from the quiver. So it's sort of like a nerf in a weird way, but as a quality of life or just getting an inventory slot back sometimes. From the perspective, if you're bringing ZCB and T-bow and now these bolts, Like you're effectively losing an extra inventory slot, right? Because you're having to bring the bolt switch. I think from where I am at right now, originally this is how this worked as well, right? Before the quiver got in the game, if you brought a crossbow and a T-bow, you obviously need to bring the bolt switch as well. Maybe even a second bolt switch, depending on what content you're doing. I don't know why you'd be in that situation, but ZCB obviously just pushes rubies these days. In my perspective, you have this problem throughout the majority of the game if you want to bring the bolt switch and a crossbow and like a T-bow or something. And then you get the quiver, then you get your inventory slot back. Obviously feels great. It's a nice progression. It's a cool item to get. Is it okay that then you get this like new end game reward and then you kind of lose that inventory slot again, and then maybe a future reward we then upgrade the quiver or something else where then you get that inventory slot back? Is that good progression to like you get that inventory slot back and then you get these extra items and then you lose it again? Obviously you still technically have it, but like you're bringing an extra item with you, right? You want to bring all three of these things with you. Like, is that good progression? Like in my mind, I feel like that feels sensible. I don't like the idea of like, okay, now if we introduce another crossbow in the future or another, like maybe we made a really good ballista, do we need the quiver to have 4 slots in it then? 5 slots? Do you know what I mean? Like does the quiver should the quiver itself be the ubiquitous solution to all ammo problems? I can see the argument being yes, right? But equally, it feels like it's eating a lot of potential progression there that you could unlock the future content. I don't really know, but
I think I like that from like a long-term scheme of things, but it does feel bad if it's just not worth the 2 inventory spaces to not bring a new raid weapon here. I have no examples of that at all, but there are a couple places where that second inventory space is just going to make it not worth it. But I do get what you're saying, that yeah, just kind of how the game progresses, just flip-flop between the 2.
I guess my argument to that would be like, what are you dropping for it?
Yeah, and I don't have any examples.
It might be an extra spec weapon that it just barely made the cut anyway. Like it might be something really low hanging fruit or a bit of flavor. Maybe you do just bring less food. Obviously, that's always the angle, but people at TOB these days barely bring anything in anyway.
I have an example.
Yeah.
TOA. You bring blowpipe, you bring ZCB, and you bring T-bow. So with this now, for like the monkey room, you would bring it. Now you have that problem. I just realized that.
Do you still bring blowpipe though?
Yeah, you wouldn't bring blowpipe, right?
I mean,
it depends. It depends what the projectile speed is, because the boulders, blowpipe's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know.
She makes going to be quick, to be honest.
And
it's got more, right?
It's got more range too, so you'll hit the first boulder earlier.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a good question. The projectile delay, if it's like a blowpipe, because blowpipe's always the same, like projectile delay, no matter how far away you're standing, if you're on rapid. Whereas crossbows usually once you're like, something like 2 tiles away or longer or something, you get like an extra tick delay for your projectile to land, which would make bobble boulders a little bit more awkward, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely make that good. I don't see why those bolts would have to be slow. I think that's the entire vibe of the weapon, is to be quick and rapid, right? I think before
That's a huge thing, actually. I didn't even think of that.
Or have them go super slow, like the shadow. So like you're shooting, and like the time you've already shot 5 bolts, none of them have hit yet.
No.
Just like all
You're gonna be a Nilo. There's like 10 Nilos just waiting to die, waiting for a bolt.
Just waiting for him. Yeah.
I would like to see how the blowpipe works. It doesn't matter your distance; it dies same speed. I'm pretty sure that's how the blowpipe works.
Perfect.
Considering
also, tagging in a sense, it sucks. It does help as well. It's consistent.
I'll make a note about the ascension bolt delay just to make sure we get that right. Because it's something that's very easy to forget about.
I will say just one last point I want to bring up is the more I hear this, I actually would prefer just personally to have it more like a blowpipe, where it is just like the crossbows are charged with the ascension bolts. And of course, it's easier done if there is just one type of ascension bolts. Of course, you still can have the onyx and the diamond. Yeah. And you could just buff the crossbow so that they don't need to use the quiver. I understand some people would be upset about that, but I actually think more people would be upset bringing in additional ammo than having to like actually just not have the quiver effect with the bolts, because they are technically a different type of bolt. So I don't know. You could always kind of argue like.
Yeah, I guess I'll just like say what I said again before. Like, do you think that's sustainable long term? Right. I completely agree with like your immediate concerns. I 100% do. But like long term, like, does that just mean every new range weapon that isn't replacing ZCB or T-bow just needs to have its own self-contained ammo system that's stored inside of it?
Yeah,
it feels not sustainable to me.
You're right.
I also
So-
don't think just like buffing them to compensate for the quiver would be the way to go either. Like I like the idea of, oh, I have a quiver, or I'm gonna go get a quiver, and now it's gonna make these
Encourages that
stronger.
progression, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
encourages
no,
the
that's a good
progression, and
point.
then if you didn't have a quiver, you'd just be getting a better crossbow that you would have
Yeah.
gotten on release with this. So
It's
That is a
weird,
good
right?
point.
I think generally RuneScape's at its best when all the progression systems like benefit each other and interlinked everything, but obviously that can cause friction at times, and it's just making sure like what is the right trade-offs. There's no right answer fundamentally, right? We're just kind of going by our gut.
I also this blog post kind of put at ease the upkeep with this. I'm feeling pretty confident about the upkeep overall. So that was great to
Mixture is
see.
fine.
Yeah, and I think like honestly, it's like the way I think about it too is like it's kind of the upkeep it's directly comparing against is dragon darts in my blowpipe, and like those are already kind of hard to upkeep. So I expect this to be, provided I'm doing the methods, pretty decent at upkeeping, and simultaneously making my blowpipe dragon darts last longer. Because when I do use the blowpipe somewhere instead of these, I'll be able to keep up those dragon darts. So
We
you're
are doing something.
you're solving
go on.
both, solving both issues right here.
I have no idea like how economically this is going to go, but we are experimenting with the idea of in the lobby actually having just some rocks you can mine for the ascension balls, effectively, like getting the things that you chisel down into the vaults. That is going to be probably one of the most interactive with skilling methods that we've ever created, outside of just a regular tree, right? The amount of people at AFK waiting for your friends to come and you just mine, you get a couple of thousand bolts, whatever. Like
Especially
it's
when
just
you
it's
gonna
make
rack
it-
up.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be amazing too if I didn't even have to like get my pickaxe with somehow. Like there was just a way for me
Barbarian
to like
mining.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say
just
barbarian.
just get it and then just bank it right after when we're ready to go. Like
Maybe you
obviously
need
I'll
like
pull up the
100
pickup,
KC
but
for
yeah.
that or something.
Yeah. The more your friends go to the washroom and AFK, the more bolts you end up with. Great.
No, I love the idea of it being in the raid
Genius.
lobby. That is perfect.
It is.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's move on to the Zarket Breaker, which has obviously got some rebalances to it. I want to go to Mod Arcane, and then I immediately want to go over to Molgoatkirby because he did just have a breakdown of the DPS and where it really shines, and where some of the places that has been a little bit debuffed since the last time. So Mod Arcane.
Yeah, so the original, I mean, I could talk about Mega Rares for ages, but I think overall we've done a fairly good job in trying to create a Mega Rare that most people seem excited about, like thematically and vibes. Obviously, some people have questions on that itself, but overall, it seems like people are okay with that, at least from my point of view. And it seems to not eat too much of side space, fundamentally. Like, it has to eat some of side space, otherwise a melee Mega Rare kind of just can't exist. But it doesn't seem to eat too much. I think on a current iteration, it probably doesn't eat quite enough. Again, so like we've gone maybe a little bit too far in one direction. So we're tweaking again, and we have been talking to Molgo as well, just to get some ideas on like where they can actually sit, which I'm sure we can go into shortly. But yeah, I think this current iteration just pulled it back because there was actually a bug in my simulation code as well, where it's treating every NPC as it's treating every NPC as what was it? Basically, there's one of my conditionals is wrong. It's giving it a bigger buff than it shouldn't have had. So all of my calcs just got whacked. So now we can actually bring it back in line to where it should be, where it's only really good against like crush targets generally, or really surpasses Scythe at crush targets.
Yeah, so basically summarizing the changes we got now. So basically it was similar to sort of a proposal I had a month ago, but a little different. But yeah, the damage buff you get to the size of the NPC is like a bit smaller. So 20% for 2x2s, 4% increase to your max hit for 3x3s. And now the extra damage rolls you get is now, instead of getting an extra damage roll for every style that's higher than Crush, it's only for Stab and Slash, and you get 2 extra rolls for each style that's higher than Crush. And so yeah, this kind of results in, so first of all, it caps now at 4 extra rolls, so 5 rolls total versus the 7 we had before. But at the high end, the DPS kind of like tapers anyways, because you get like negligible, once you get to like 5, you already have like most of your DPS on this weapon. 6 and 7 rolls is just kind of minor, like a few percent more damage, so not a big deal. And yeah, so it still slaps when it comes to monsters that have Stab and Slash both being higher than Crush, like it does insane damage. When you have all 3 styles equal, the weapon's essentially weaker than a weapon at this point, so it does struggle in that situation. And if it has one style that's higher than Crush, it gets a total of 3 rolls, and it performs um, decently, but still worse than Scythe. Yeah, still worse than Scythe, especially if with slash defense is lower than Crush defense. So yeah, essentially, to beat the Scythe, it's gotta have that extra two styles being higher than Crush, or else Scythe is the winner essentially. If I remember all my math right. So yeah, summary of what we got right now.
And it sounded like you wanted it to be just a little bit more tuned up a bit, which was the case. So if one of the melee styles is tied, it would just give a pity +1 effect. Is that correct? I'm getting that right?
Yeah, that was like my initial proposal. Like Arcane said, we've also been talking, like, if we want to mention some of the ideas we had or not, but yeah, there's some other ideas as well. But yeah, that was my previous proposal, like the +1 pity thing, which would help. It helps out more so the situations where it's like either like matching the Scythe damage or at least getting closer to Scythe, but not so much the better than Scythe situations.
Okay. Ziti?
I was going to say, it feels really well balanced as it is right now. Like, I think that if we've needed to feel a little bit more powerful, that exact proposal is probably something I'd be in support of. But beforehand, how it was basically stepping on the Scythe almost everywhere, unless all the defenses were equal. So I really like where it's at right now.
I'm just curious on like Mod Arcane's like thoughts on like, so when you swing a Scythe, right, you're rolling 0 to like 90, right? With this thing, you know, rolling 0 to 60, but very often you're gonna hit that like 50 number. Like, it just, I don't know. There's one thought in me that just makes it feel like it might be less fun to use just using a weapon that's consistently 50, 50,
Really?
50 rather than like 20,
so fun.
70. You know, I don't know. Like, it's consistency versus potential. And it's just something I've been thinking about that I'm not sure how he thinks about it, or I don't know.
I agree with that to a certain extent. I agree. Hitting
I think
zeros
it'll feel
isn't fun
fun.
either.
I think most of the fun just comes from the animation, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I think
Well, that we haven't
most
seen.
of it.
That we haven't
Which
seen.
yeah, I mean, it's not been created yet, but I'm have full faith that the animation team will create something that just looks sick. We're going to put the effort there. Reality is, you basically never hit 9 with a Scythe, right? Like, the chances of maxing the Scythe is so much lower than an average weapon, just because of how it works. I get that the idea is like a fantasy, like, I could hit 90, but reality is, you basically never see that number. And even when you do see that number, it's not actually 90, it's like 48, 24, 12, or whatever, right? It's never actually a 9, but that still feels great, right? The triple hit spot just feels good with Scythe, fundamentally. And it is going to be losing that to some degree. I think the animation's just going to have to kind of make up for it.
Yeah.
Just to throw one thing in there, all the mega rares kind of hit that high. Well, Shadow's only like in TOA with the 4X, but like the Scythe can hit that high, the T-Bow can hit that high, the Shadow can hit that high in some aspects. So like these all can, and like they have that like potential to, but this just being consistent, I don't know. I'm just curious how it'll like feel as a weapon. I don't know.
I'll just weigh in. I think it's gonna feel absolutely incredible. Like the fact that it'll feel like a miracle to hit anything below a 10 is just gonna be like, oh, I hit a 10. Like, what?
I guess it's the opposite.
So low. Like,
it's the miracle of hitting a low number, and then Scythe, it's the opposite. The miracle that you hit the 90.
But I
like,
I'm excited about hitting 50s over and over.
If you want like a bait, it doesn't work the same, but it functionally doesn't feel very similar. The Kiston, now that it's fixed, kind of feels like that. You're hitting like this range very, very consistently. And I haven't been able to test it today, but just based on the numbers and knowing how much stronger it's supposed to be compared to before, it's probably going to feel pretty good. Kirby, have you had a chance to go to Tecton yet and give it a go?
Yeah, I did a test. It was performing actually like normal now. Like, I actually got a sample size that was actually above average damage for once.
There it is.
And in a really big sample size, it was like really close to the average of expected damage. So I'm pretty sure it's fixed now.
But how did it feel hitting that same consistent number versus a variance of number? Just to give a little teaser of how the mega rare might feel, you know?
I mean, it felt pretty good. Like, I mean, I wasn't pied for Tecton, but it was like, you know, it'd be like 30, 40, 30, 40, 50, you know, just not too many zeros despite Tecton being like, I'm not even like reducing Tecton's defense. I'm just whacking with a spec over and over again, and it's just hitting. So it's pretty good.
I think the Kiston's winning me over though. on the consistent DPS side.
Yeah, fair. I
Just
have been
to-
enjoying
yeah.
using that.
I wonder if the fun will almost translate into like how many 50s in a row do you hit? You're like 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
Yeah.
4, 5.
Like the
It's also-
superiors in this last league.
It's
Oh, yeah.
kind of funny too, because like I know we don't really have identities for slash versus stab, right? Really, but just the idea that we're gonna have a crush mega rare and a crush DPS spec that are gonna consistently hit between like 40s and 50s and maybe 60s is gonna be like a fun identity for crush. Like that really, I don't even know if you guys intended for that, but it is
don't think so.
a new direction. Yeah.
That is interesting flavor. That slash has the potential for crazy number, while crush is more a consistent number. That's interesting flavor.
Because we have like a Warhammer spec, Elder Maul spec. It's kind of been like a trend of like reducing defense in a consistent way for consistency, I guess, of Crush.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah,
It's like poetry. It's like poetry. It rhymes.
exactly like
Yeah.
I'm like exactly like poetry. No, I didn't know where you were
Optimistic,
what-
it'll feel good.
One thing I loved reading is that it's not going to hit random stuff that's underneath your 3x3.
going. Thank goodness.
Any
Scythe still
plans to
does
do
that
that with
on-
Scythe too?
Ugh.
Yeah, can we toggle that?
Yeah.
Wait, is
Yeah,
there
I
a
don't know
reason
if
why,
it's
why that's it's just code in the
No,
way it
probably
was
not.
and it just never touched
Just
again.
code.
So, yeah, whatever.
Do you
It's
know?
Yeah.
Clarification: if you had two 2x2s with the new mega rare, are you going to hit 2 damage on one on the other? Is that kind of the way?
That's
it's
how
gonna
I
be
would
coded?
expect it, where the first one you hit would hit it twice, and then hit the one behind it one more time.
Yeah, and if
Obviously,
they're stacked on top of each other, it's just
effectively
whichever-
random almost.
Yeah. Okay.
I had just a 1 point on the 3-tick ability of it, just having to switch styles for that. I feel like I'm sort of in the minority with this, just feeling like we should just lean into its 5-tick abilities and just not even have a 3-tick, only because in the future we could actually introduce 3-tick weapons instead of just having a mega rare doing 2 things at once. I understand it's not going to be super amazing on 3-tick compared to what we could get in the future, but what are your thoughts on just the ability to have 2 different cycles? It feels like it's sort of splitting the identity of it.
It absolutely is. I just think it's minor enough to the point where it kind of just doesn't really matter. This is
Okay.
fundamentally like it's just a quirky little thing. I think it's just a bit of extra flavor. I think when we were designing it, we were worried that it is a little bit too boring and just needed a little bit of extra spice. And this is just an attempt at having that. It's not obviously going to use charges either when you're on the fast one because it doesn't really get like the extra benefits. So maybe there's be some situations you'll just use it to save charges. It is very minor. It's not a really big thing. Hopefully that's fine. I do think it would be a cleaner proposal without it, if I'm honest. But I don't think it's bringing it down either.
Okay.
I also think it's easy to add 3-tick weapons that are better. Where
it's not good,
It's
Like,
yeah, its
fundamentally.
benefit will be that you have 2 and 1, and then the next 3-tick that comes out is just better stats.
Yeah.
I'm just fantasizing inventory space. Fasani and Tob, you just mega rare.
Something
Switch for
different.
Nalo, switch for the little
Yeah.
guys, the husks.
Yep.
I know there are some people that think there's not enough rewards now, so we could just take the 3-tick and slap it on a new weapon and call it a day.
Straight up. I kid you not, I'd actually
Easy.
be more in favor of that, of having like a slightly, not the mega rare weapon, but the, of course we're getting the wand, which we're going to talk about in a second, but just having a 3-tick weapon that's literally just what we have with the breaker, maybe just slightly tuned up. And so that's the new 3-tick beater basher thingy. And
I think my instinct would be that people would complain that doesn't feel praiseworthy.
that's fair.
Might be wrong, but I think it'd probably end up being quite weak and quite niche and not overly desirable unless it does just try to beat out like Inkmace and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would have to be tuned up to a point where it's more than just for melee Nilos, because I
Yeah.
agree. If it's just for that use case, totally not worth it.
I mean, even if it just competed with like the rapier and stuff, like DPS wise, even if it was slightly, maybe even better than a rapier, it's going to be harder to maintain that DPS because it's a 3-tick weapon. I just think you could have something that is just right on par with even the Inquisitor's mace with full Inquisitor. It could be just like a crush weapon that's 3-ticks, and now you have either the easier to use 4-tick cycle with the Inquisitor's mace, or have this 3-tick weapon that's basically on par with the DPS of it, and it's just a more interesting approach where in some situations you want that triple cycle, or in those situations like Nilos or Monkeys, or just a quick like Slayer task where you're just like, I'm just going to use this to bash all the ghosts for my turtle skipping or whatnot.
I think I agree with the theory, but the reality is a 3-tick weapon just scales harder than a 4-tick weapon. So even if we perfectly balanced it to exact DPS as a 4-tick weapon right now, we add a bit of extra strength, Inquisitor's Mace is in the bin. Like, it just doesn't work.
Have you considered? Well, that's actually something I have thought about going forward if we ever do introduce 3 or 2-tick weapons in the future. And I think one of the solutions is always to scale it so that it's a 4-tick thing. So what it's doing is it's calculating, or calcing for short. No, I gotta stop with that. So it's basically calculating your whole gear setup, and then what it's doing is it's taking like 75% of that for a 3-tick, or 50% of that max strength that you have, so that it's future proofing for the future to be able to release 2-tick weapons. Because as long as you just take your max like strength, and maybe even it'll go with accuracy, melee accuracy as well, and then just reduce it to 50% of that, and that's how it's calculating what your hits are, then you never need to worry about exponential scaling in the future. It's just always going to be based off a 4-tick weapon and then just doing that percentage. I just think that's probably the cleanest solution. Again, it's not even for Raids 4 right now, but in the future going forward, I think that's probably what we have to do, because strength just keeps getting more and more insane.
I can see the logic.
Yeah. Okay. Should we move on, guys? Any last final thoughts on the Tazar Breaker?
We
Okay.
talked about the run dash for 40 minutes and the mega rare for like 10.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that a good sign?
Oh, I guess
It's in a pretty
I don't
good
know how
place.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you can
be a
leak.
little. Oh, my bad.
Oh no, go ahead. You go.
I just think it needs to be a little bit better. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm with that too.
sounds
We are
about
looking
it.
at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think you guys have mentioned this somewhere, but is the plan to make this mega rare good for this raid like the other ones? I don't know if you can answer that, because I know that
Oh boy.
involves items on the Grand Exchange. But is that still the design of it? Like, is it going to be great for this, or is it just going to be good for the stuff we already know it's good for?
Yeah, we don't know how many bosses it will be good for, like, but I fully expect like the vast majority of the raid that this weapon will be good for. I think players expect that, and I think players would be a bit confused if we released a raid and it was scythe everywhere. Like, that'd be a bit questionable.
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Yeah, I think we're
All right.
good.
The hybrid armor got scrapped, which I think most of us are okay with. In fact, I think it got replaced with something even cooler. One in particular, the prayer, that we'll touch on in a second. But Mod Arcane, any thoughts on that hybrid armor, how it was originally maybe imagined to be perceived, and then how it actually came across with the audience or with the player base?
Yeah, so the armor originally was there because I think players expect an armor from an armor set from a raid. Like, that was just the initial premise. And we tried to identify like all the different spaces that we thought an armor set could fill. There was very little, to be honest. Like, there's very little spaces for armor sets to exist in the moment without just power creeping or needing attachments and stuff. I think it's too soon for a ranged armor set. Maged armor set, we do think there's been enough time, but power creeping a Raid's armor set is weird. Attachment escape to a Raid's armor set is weird. Like, maybe an elemental armor set. We mused on that for a bit, but didn't get really much positivity about that. Like, some mild positivity, but maybe not from a raid. Maybe that we can still do that armor set, but from a different piece of content. Melee, we have just done Oathplate very recently. Feels inappropriate to power creep like Torva or something like that, and that also kind of power creeps on Oathplate as well. So we kind of just felt like, what can we even do? And that's kind of where like the hybrid armor set came approach, where the idea was just like, okay, it's not best to slot at anything, but it's just really good at quite a lot of things. So we came up with the mage melee armor set. I think a lot of the feedback has kind of been covered, and I imagine you guys have gone over it, but there's feelings that it's too strong. There's feelings that it kind of like homogenizes like endgame in terms of like, okay, now I just do less gear switching. Is that actually interesting? The game's like sort of less engaging now, in a weird way. And is that good? Having armor that's just like really, really good at a lot of things, like those inventory spaces are valuable. And does that value like creep the power that something like Torva or Ancestral would have given you? There's like PvP concerns about just like, this is like really tanky armor that does both styles. Like, it's really insane. Like, there's just a lot of qualms with it in reality. And so we just sat back and went like, yeah, it's clearly just not it in reality. So I do think there's a world where that proposal, about 20 or 30% weaker, probably would work and like fit in the game okay. I think if they're weak enough to the point where those problems don't really surface as much.
Yeah.
But then it just doesn't feel like a raids reward. It doesn't fit. So they're like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe there's a world we bring it down and release it from a different piece of content in the future. Maybe that can work. But regardless, we're pulling it for now. Also, there's a bunch of people who just like the visuals, and there's a shame to get rid of that.
Yeah.
So now we have a camp of players that are upset that there's no armor set, upset that there's no Gothic reward, themed reward, upset that they don't get that specific one, upset that obviously they don't get this melee mage armor set. So, yeah, we've tried to fill that void, basically, and make people excited for these next two rewards.
I know this is like years in advance, but I kind of also appreciate kind of ripping the band-aid off a little bit in terms of what a raid needs to have, right? Like there was a potential that this could end up being similar to TOB or TOA, where it's like we need to have 7 rewards.
Yep.
We need to have an armor set, right? I'm totally fine with stepping away from that mold. There's no, other than history, it's relatively arbitrary. And yeah, and I also think in the future, like right now, everything's an armor set. It'd be cool to just get like a helmet or something, you know, like not everything needs to be a set of 3, right? Like it'd be cool to explore that in the future as well. So yeah, I think pretty much everyone on this call was on board with this change just based on our discussion in previous weeks. But also I think it helps potentially designing future content or future raids because we're not creating too much of the same pattern that players will expect over and over.
I've got 2 things on that, if I can interject. I'm not disagreeing with you. That made me sound like I'm disagreeing with you. One thing was, I completely agree with like the whole like ripping the band-aid thing off. I do feel like sometimes that people like consistency for consistency's sake. A lot of the time, where it's like, oh yeah, this thing did it, so we need to mirror it. And like sometimes consistency's actually got value. But sometimes I feel like we try and push consistency into the game for kind of the sake of it, and that can actually be a detriment. I think this is a good example of that. I don't think a raid needs to have an armor set. I think it's just an expectation, right? And hopefully players are okay with that. It feels like so far players are okay with that in this case. On the second thing, on the I kind of wanted to vibe check the whole like a new helmet or something, or like not an armor set, just like an individual piece. Helmets have been kind of normalized in RuneScape a little bit. Obviously we've got Serp, got Nezi. Is there any more standalone helmets? I feel like
Slayer
the
helmet?
third one. Fire helmet. So we've got a couple of those that's normalized a bit. On specifically helmets, do we feel like it's okay if we just released a helmet that's like just theory crafting for the sake of it, being like exaggeratory? If you had more slash accuracy than Oathplate, and more strength bonus than Torva, and more cross accuracy than Inquisitor, like just the idea of this helmet that just power creeps on all 3 of them, right? Do you think that's okay?
I wouldn't find that to be okay.
It
I
looks
think it
good, mismatched.
I think it would
No,
need.
That's a separate conversation.
Yeah.
I think maybe to that extent, no, but I do think it could power creep a couple things if it's a standalone.
That's what I was going to say. Is power creeping 2 of those okay?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I don't know.
I think when you're affecting like the armor set, probably not. But if it was like not always better than the Inquisitor helmet and not always better than the Torva, it's sort of like the way the Slayer helmet. What niche is there where this thing could be better? But
I think
in other
that's
cases,
where, in my perspective, the design falls apart a bit because Torva's got a decent amount more strength bonus. If we had like 2 extra strength bonus over Torva, I think there's a lot of places where that helmet probably would just creep on Oathplate helmet and Inquis helmet already, because the amount of accuracy they give isn't actually that much fundamentally. So like instantly those are deleted from like relevancy, and that's just 2 strength bonus, and Torva's deleted from relevancy.
Yeah.
So I don't know what niche that fills in really. That's kind of why I wanted to vibe check. Is like, is power creeping it okay? Because that makes it easy for us, right? If we can just power creep it, but
if it's a helmet that was like an undead helmet, so like, you know, it would be really good against undead creatures, but
okay,
otherwise,
so it really had a distinct niche, didn't have stats.
yeah, I think that's the only way you could maybe power creep those things. That's just, I don't know if undead would be the way, but it's an example.
Yeah, it's a good example.
I'm more of a fan of having some interesting niche, like the Serpentine Helm just being protective against venom, like super cool. It sucks that it's just not as good anymore, but if we had like seriously just another helmet that's similar to the Serp, maybe even have to attach a Serpentine, you know, visage to it, and then it creates the new Giga Serpentine helm, because a lot of people would love to be able to, a lot of people loved rocking the Serpentine when it was just sort of best in slot and also had that Venom effect. It'd be cool in the future if we did have another helmet to basically match maybe Torva, but have a charging element to it where it's protecting you against Venom and stuff, and maybe even some other like burning effect. Potentially it protects against burning, and who knows.
You know, it'd be like a sick upgrade attachment to the Serp helm that would need to, like, we'd actually need to see the balance of it. But like when you're using it against monsters that do venom you and poison you, it gets like a buff in those cases. So it like is the anti-helmet, not just because
it actually
helps you with that.
Healing you 20s over.
It does something. I was thinking it puts its strength like at the Torva level at least, right? Yeah. But I don't know.
Yeah, there's some interesting ideas there, and I didn't think about like a Bane helmet. It's kind of interesting.
I was gonna say like Demon Bane could be.
Yeah.
Oh God, please no.
Oh, more demon.
Not yet.
For an armor piece.
Spider Bane, all fucking spiders.
We should just all be wearing
scariest.
our lava dragon masks, and that's like the new helmet kit that just has 10% additional dragon bane or dragonkin damage and accuracy.
But yeah, Travis did raise a good point though. Trying to release this like new theoretical helmet that fits with Oathplate and Inquisitor and Torva and whatever else. That is just so hard. Like,
yeah, definitely.
I feel like Nezzy got away with so much because A, it was quite neutral colors, and B, the melee armor sets at the time were fairly neutral as well. Magma Helm, I think, and like Tans got away with it because they were just such massive grinds that you can have this really garish colors, and people were just excited to show off what they had, right? But it didn't match with anything, right? And I kind of got away with it. I feel like that is a very big artistic challenge. Maybe they'll be able to figure it out, but every time we make an armor set, we have this problem, right, where people mix and match and are unhappy with the combinations of mix and matching.
Question, just this is super off topic, but in regards to the Tazar Cat Breaker, is there a chance we could get like some ice sort of ornament kit for it, so it all of a sudden turns into like an ice one, like a blue one? So if we're rocking like, I guess you would never rock Radiant Oathplate with this thing anyway, but because it's Slash. But I'm just trying to think of like a situation where you'd want it different color just to show off, and it could be a super rare thing from the raid itself.
I'd be very surprised if we didn't have some sort of ornament kits from Raids 4, whether it's at release or post launch or something like that, and do some cool stuff there.
You just
some Gothics ones.
Oh, you just reminded me of something.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So it being named the Tazar Kit Breaker, and there's like some lore aspect that you guys are like, is it made, for the Tazar or to take down the Tazar? They like throw in the blog. It's not very good against the Tazar. Like in game, like in the Inferno and all that, it's not good. Like the Scythe is way better. I thought that was funny. But one thing I want to bring up about the armor, to bring it back to that, I feel like, not that you glossed over it on purpose, but you're like Oathplate, Torva. You didn't say ink. I feel like a lot of the
sorry.
Okay, I feel like a lot of the community really did push, like, can we upgrade Inquisitor? Because now, you get the Breaker and you want to use it. You get the Scythe, you get to use Torva. You got this defense, all this. You get Oathplate, you got this great defense. Now you get the Breaker and you want best DPS, you got to use Ink. And it's like, yeah, it adds flavor, but it could have used the upgrade. I feel like there is a path where it could have been done. And yeah, I'm curious how you felt about that.
Honestly, I really want to do it. I really want to quote-unquote fix Ink. Because Ink's just like a weird situation, right? Like, it had the negative accuracies, which we have changed now. It didn't have the right amount of accuracy, which we've changed now. It has the low defense, which is much more awkward to change, but I want to change it. It was just made in a simpler time when the state of the community was different, right? And power creep was very, very cautious back then. I want to fix it. When we talked and proposed ideas like this to players, we actually got quite a lot of negative response. So, like, combining things with it. Like, currently where I'm at is, like, is the best option to just kind of, like, you pay some person who's like the Sisterhood Sanctuary, like a bunch of money, and she gives you, like, a fortified version of it or something like that. It feels a little bit lazy, but people seem quite against the idea of like combining Justy with it, breaking Justy down and stuff like that. Like, I think that sounds quite cool, but obviously it's a raid reward requiring nightmare reward. Like, that has weird progression complaints. I've not seen a design that just feels like it ticks every box, but I do feel like it needs sorting out, and I imagine that's going to become much louder post Raids 4, and we're probably going to end up having to do something.
I'm not trying to sit here and throw you a pitch or anything, but what I would
No,
like to
go ahead.
see, so like one thing that's annoying as an iron, right? Like you go for ancestral, you've got like your 5th hat in a row and you don't have like the legs for it. I would like to see that you get one drop, it's a fragment or whatever from the raid, and every time you get one, you get to use it on one piece of Inquisitor. So you use it on your helmet, it's now upgraded the helmet. You get it again, now you get to use it on the plate body, you get to use it on a plate skirt, and 3 of them is required for it. So it's kind of like dry protection in a way, instead of like, oh, I got all these plate bodies, I can't get a helmet. It's a way of getting around that without saying the devilish word of dry protection. And I don't know, I feel like, I know we don't need to have, you said we could rip the band-aid off, not have an armor, but I feel like it will feel weird not wanting to use ink in the breaker, because it's like, oh, I just take so much damage, so it's not worth it. Meanwhile, mega rare you'd want to use. So I personally think that would be cool. And you could have it like be near Torva, because it's raid armor, if it's really going to be that hard. That's what I want to see.
Plus, it lets you use the design you guys already made too. You could do it very similar to that.
Right.
Just make that
and there was a sick design on Reddit of what it
was so
look
cool.
like. Yeah.
No,
That's
I
my
hear
pitch.
you.
Could be cool. To
I
see.
want to do something. I don't know if the solution's that exactly, but it's going to have to be done at some point. People are not going to be happy using tier 4 armor, fundamentally.
Right. So I think this just does the problem now rather than later, at a good time rather than a bad time where you make a bad, upgrade path. Like you said, you talk to an NPC. I don't want to see that, personally.
Quickly to talk about the elemental robes. Do you guys have, I remember when the first summer sweep up came out, I interpreted that as plans to move like the end game progression to have a bunch of different things where elemental might be best in slot for one, maybe thrown weapons best in slot for another. And then we didn't see that for a long time, but now we have the maggot, which fire is best in slot for because of various different things. And I think if we had a little more of that, the elemental robes would have been really well received. Is the plan to move forward with making a bunch of end game things where that is your actual best in slot over shadow, or not really?
Yes and no. So like we obviously rolled out weaknesses 2 or 3 years ago in this point. I don't even remember. But we didn't really want to disrupt a bunch of endgame matters. Like, that is a worry. It's like we wanted to introduce it, roll it out, make it feel like it's integrated in the game and it's relevant, but we didn't want to start disrupting a bunch of endgame matters, because that's where people usually get a bit more sensitive about certain things.
Sure.
And then I don't know, it was a year after that, or just some sweep up before last or something, we rolled out some more weaknesses on endgame bosses. Not to the point where it's like, oh, now this is insane or anything, but it's actually an option. Like, if you don't have a shadow, like, maybe this is actually a decent alternative if you've got decent gear.
Right.
And I think it's done an okay job of that at a decent amount of places. Maybe still not as much as maybe it should have done. And then, yeah, Maggot King's obviously the first boss we've released where we're like, okay, let's actually push it and see what the reception's like. I want to give that a bit more time. I welcome everyone's thoughts here. I want to give that more time in terms of, like, are people happy using on spells on like an endgame boss? I think people love the fantasy of it, but sometimes the gameplay falls apart, right?
I love it, except for the pages, just having one source. It's a fast source, but pages plus Sunfire Runes plus Scar Essence Mine to get best in slot doesn't really make it best in slot for irons anyways. Again, that's going to be my skewed opinion. I've been loving using it though. Like, it's been worth doing all those things for me just because it feels cool. And especially using a Fortic staff. It's so cool. Good. And Fortic feels good, faster attacking. Yeah, feels good. And breaking the gameplay loop of just throw double death charge everywhere has been too.
It's the problem with the harm. You have the harm, you get the good DPS, everything good. You don't have the harm. I got the harm, so everything's good, but if you don't, it's a problem.
Yep.
Let's move on to this Gatekeeper's Cane. Magic DPS spec weapon, super interesting. I was not expecting this. This came out of left field in my view. Super cool. So just breaking it down quickly, it's pretty much an Eye of Yak with -3 max hit. So just compare the Eye's 21 to now 18. But what you're getting is this amazing special attack that costs 50% energy. And if you land with it, your next 3 attacks attack at 2 tick, and they're super powerful. And Molgoatkirby's video actually illuminated how badass it could be at the Fasani's Nightmare Pillars, where there is a world where you could actually like basically kill all of them in like 4 shots. Like you could do like 400 damage or something. The odds of that is minuscule, but it's just very cool to see like this new magic spec weapon. So where did this come from, Mod Arcane? And then we'll start discussing.
Well, we have a very, very small, finite amount of reward space we feel like we can actually offer, and this is just like one thing there. Like, oh, there's a world where we could probably squeeze something there. And then obviously you originally start with like, what does Dragon Claws but Mage look like? You wouldn't want to just make it effectively Dragon Claws but literally magic. Like, is there a bit of flavor we can give there? I've always loved the idea. Like, if you think back to TOA of just a very fast attacking wand, I think that is just a cool idea fundamentally, and it's just a way of bringing that idea to life.
I love it. I did have this idea though of what if instead of 3 hits at 2 ticks, it was 6 hits at 1 tick, and then like half the DPS, obviously. But I just really like the idea of like your spec lands, and then you get infused with the power or whatever, and then you're like holding on to your staff as it like is just shooting out every single tick a hit or something for 6 ticks. I think that sounds really cool. And then it also has this added complexity of while you're speccing, moving would be a DPS loss, so it makes like the timing of your special attack another interesting lever. I like it as it is, but that was just like a thought I had, and I was like, oh, that'd be so cool. You're like trying to hold on your staff as the power's just going nuclear or something.
It would be really cool. And just the animation holding it up above
The
your head.
animation.
Yeah.
That'd be
That is
sick.
cool.
It's like basically like a whatever sparklers, like 4th of July sparkler, just holding it up, blasting everywhere.
A laser beam.
Yeah.
Them.
This thing makes doing calcs so much harder.
Oh my
because
god.
you have to
Oh, man.
factor in like the 8 or 9 ticks that it takes versus like the 4 a Dragon Claws takes, and what your main hand is now even more important. Oh, it's challenge, but it clearly is very strong, capable of hitting like what, a combined 200 plus Kirby probably, just based on
Yeah, I
the
think it
numbers.
max at like 220 something. Can't remember.
Yeah, insane.
I love that it's different. It's going to be very fun to use. Big fan.
Can I pitch an idea that I think some people would be on board with? We have no... Okay, so I know the Guthix Archive is a collection of artifacts from that Guthix has collected, but I think a cool ode here would be if these were like gauntlets. I know it's like the whole alluding to Fist of Guthix vibe, but imagine you have gauntlets on, and it's still a magic attack. It's the exact same thing you're describing. The only difference is instead of a stab, it's like gauntlets, and it kind of works with this like 2-tick rate where it's like you got your standard kind of attack where you're not really using it, but then like flurry 1 2 3 4, and maybe the projectile is like impactful in that sense. It's still a projectile. Maybe it's like a fist kind of shape that gets shot out. I just think like it's a cool idea to make a little ode here towards like a Guthix reward.
I actually like that more because then it's a 2-handed weapon, meaning you don't have to also bring, because if you're rocking a shadow and then you want to use this bad boy, maybe you're just using the Eye of Ayak and then you're using this, so that would make more sense. But if you're using a 2-handed weapon, then you could switch to the gloves, do the special attack, and it's not, you now also have to bring your Elidinis and stuff. Like it's just, you'll get max DPS with just the 2-handed glove. Like I actually love that. That's a cool idea.
I think it's so cool that I'd rather save it for the next Mega Rare.
Ooh, deal.
I think it's too cool
I'm
for
gonna
just
hold
this
you
like
to it.
niche spec.
But I mean, it deals
cool.
like 250 damage.
I know. It's a really cool idea though. I've always loved the idea of like fist weapons, claws or whatever. That's rad.
Was there any reason why we wanted to just tone it back 3 max hits below the Ayak? Was it just to keep the Ayak still like a nice auto attacking weapon?
It wasn't meant to become this really strong basic weapon.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's like the base hit of Ayak though, right? Like that's what Ayak hits at level 83, right? Ayak hits higher at 99, higher at 120 with overloads. So it actually ends up being a lot more than I assume, potentially 3 max hits when you get to the higher level.
Yeah, so it definitely brings it down notably.
So I know we're supposed to be talking about the Gatekeeper's Cane, and I want to talk about it, but I feel like this has to go with it. Why does the volatile have to just be in this such bad, sad state?
Oh, poor volatile.
It's like you want to add a DPS spec weapon. It's like, well, that one kind of should be one, and it's just like not.
Why does every conversation come back to Nightmare? Tell me that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. It just does
We
it
were
on its
just talking
own.
about harm.
It
Now
just
it's
does it on
volatile.
its own.
An
Like,
Inquisitor, like everything, man. It all comes back to Nightmare.
all right,
Yeah.
I'll keep it.
I don't
at
have a
this
good
then.
answer. I
Yeah,
don't have a good answer, right?
okay.
Nightmare's just got kind of scuff drops, and they need soaring, but it's really hard to soar.
Yeah. All right, I'll
Reducing
keep
drop
it
rate helps a bit. Like, obviously, we proposed stuff in the latest sweep of like moving them around a bit, which theoretically can help in some ways.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they're really hard to get, and they just don't justify the grind fundamentally.
Right.
A lot of the time. Yeah. Yeah, it's an elephant in the room. In reality, I don't have a good answer,
Yeah.
but we need to do something.
So I'll come back to the cane. So one of my friends had a good like thought about it, like in practicality when using it. So let's talk about like Whisperer, right? Let's say so when you use it, right? It's a 3-tick attack, and you have to see, did I hit, and then I get this imbue, right? So you first have to have like, okay, do I hit, and if I do hit, do I have this plan to get like all this damage off, or like, okay, I do this attack, oh, I missed, okay, I gotta quickly go back to my shadow to maintain DPS. So like, let's say you do hit, right? Let's say you're doing Whisper and you do hit, and now you have these 2-tick attacks, but then when you have these 2-tick attacks, if you miss a tick, it's so much DPS loss. So like you're doing Whisperer and you do 1 attack, 2 attack, the tentacle comes, now you have to move, and now you do the last attack. Like there's just like this like weird, like, I don't know. It's just a lot of things are happening where you could lose damage by losing any ticks to make it not as good. But that could just be more of like, this is just like a harder spec weapon to use than Claws or ZCB. You just use it, you get the damage, boom. But this is like a little bit harder. But maybe I haven't looked at the numbers enough that it warrants how much harder it is to use. Because I was told it doesn't warrant, because it's like you'll use it because there's nothing else. But like there's a lot going on that makes it just harder to use.
Let me add just one thing as well, and then I'll have Arcane respond. Are you able to switch weapons in between this flurry of attacks, or will, as soon as you switch a weapon, it cancels everything?
It'll be like Soul Reaper. Like, obviously we got rid of that in Soul Reaper. We're swapping, got rid of the stacks. It'll keep the buff for it. It'll be a duration and a number of attacks.
Okay, so you could just switch to your shadow briefly and then go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, hold on. So you're saying you could spec with it and basically hold that, like. Okay.
It'll still be a duration. You won't be able to hold it like 30 seconds or something like that.
Yeah.
Some appropriate duration, but that gives you a bit of flexibility, right?
That is
I love the idea
interesting.
of hard to use specs too. I really like that idea. I mean, just how faster weapons are harder to use, but you get a big payoff for it. I think that's very interesting. And it has to be buffed or strong enough accordingly. But yeah, I actually do really like that it'll be a skill ceiling to get used to.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I'm just saying.
I hated it.
Thoughts about it.
We all heard it.
Yeah, I hated it.
Yeah, Travis.
Like if you're at Zulrah, if you don't use it as your first attack and you use it later, I guess you're just a noob at that point because you won't get the attacks off or whatever. But
I think you would get used to it, and you'd figure out which windows feel comfortable to use things.
No, you would. It's a higher skill ceiling, and I like that. I do. It's just what I was thinking.
It's a good point though, because there might be some bosses where you generally feel like you can't use a spec, like it just doesn't give you a window, and it's miserable, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that warrants some tweaking, but we'll figure it out.
Whisper phasing would completely.
There you go, Joe. That right there. That's the worst.
Any sort of phasing in reality, right?
That's its own problem though. Let's make Whisper not phases.
Also, what was this being charged with? I don't think it said, unless I missed it. What runes?
I don't think we actually mentioned it, but it'll be charged with something.
Not Ascension shards, though. Or, yes, Ascension shards.
Maybe, it probably could be. And something else, like runes plus Ascension shards or something.
Interesting.
Onyx bolt tips, give them those.
Onyx bolts.
Actually, let's just make it Onyx bolts E. Anything that Travis is alked on mass, we'll just use that as the charging.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that he told me that it didn't work anyway, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that makes you feel a little better.
It did a lot better. It was 30,000.
So is everybody kind of cool? Like, I'm kind of on board with this. I wasn't actually like, there wasn't something that screamed to me like, no, this is bad. I was kind of like, cool little addition.
I love
Anybody
it.
have any other suggestion maybe that they were cooking up in their mind, or are we all kind of like, hey, okay?
I wish I watched Mogoat's video to know the numbers on it because everyone says it's so hard to calc. I want to see like where it actually fits and all that.
I'll give you a quick idea. I mean, it against monsters with very low mage defense, it can actually compete with ZCB, and
Really?
as the mage defense gets higher and higher, and it splashes more, it kind of like goes down from there to a point where it eventually goes below Voidwaker and like other weapons. Like if you have like at least like 50-60% accuracy, you can like kind of compete with Voidwaker, or 70, or at least like 60 or 70% accuracy. Like it competes with Voidwaker, and like closer to the high end, it competes with ZCB. So gives you an idea.
Was there any bosses in particular that when you did it, you were like, oh, wow, it's really good here, actually? Or not really?
I mean, the totem's a nightmare since with double damage.
true.
But
True.
small muta is kind of interesting. You can do almost half the health of a small muta from one spec with like the 4 hits. So you could, instead of ZGS, maybe try your luck, try to kill it before it gets to the tree.
Before it gets to the tree, that's
Yeah.
tech.
That's
So my
tech.
my
Just kill it
beloved
faster.
Kistin only has like 6 months to live until I stop using it at Nightmare.
Mhm.
Is that what you're telling me, Kirby?
Possibly. Well,
Oh,
actually,
boy.
I don't think I compared them on the time save of, but
You should.
yeah, it might.
Please
I think it might
do.
save more time on the totem.
I just love the enrage phase potential of Kistin because it's like consistent 3 hits and he's like dead. 4 hits and Nightmare's dead. But yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
interested in that. I wonder, this sounds like DPS magic spec, right? And like magic we don't have a lot of that. But this also feels like, is there room in the future for other mage specs? DPS specs probably like very hard to balance for once you have this thing out, right? It just feels like any other version of magic specs will be similar to the ones we currently have, right? Like the one that the Eye has or the Scepter.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at across all specs across the game, it's either defense reduction or it's just leaning into a style, right?
Yeah, there's
Magic's
only
kind of only
2
one
styles.
style. We didn't
Oh.
use the idea of like an elemental weakness spec, but I feel like it would very quickly warp elemental weaknesses being balanced around the spec instead of actual standard spells, and then that kind of just hurts the game more than it probably helps. Honestly, we're probably going to have that problem a little bit with ZCB and the new crossbows, where we can't actually hurt ZCB without hurting the new crossbows now, because they're obviously both heavy range. We can't really nerf one without nerfing the other. And we've lost that balance lever now with those crossbows, which is a shame, but I think it's worth it. So, yeah, I don't know. Well, there's always more ideas. I don't know. There's always more ideas, but
Yeah.
there's more of a faff to get out in reality.
Kirby, based on your calcs, did it feel like it's good enough to warrant being harder to use and giving up stuff like maybe like you might not melee spec, you might mage spec instead, or were there not enough use cases for it? Because I also have not watched your video yet.
I mean, in case of you save a lot of time with a hammer spec. So I don't think it'll take over there, at least not in a solo. Maybe in a team where you have like multiple people spec and you have excess spec. But you just save so much time from a hammer spec with 600 health, especially if it's a CM. In a regular, it'd be closer, but in a CM, there's no way it's going to compete with field wall.
I guess I mean more in general. Is it feeling like it's going to be picked up and used a lot of places with its current stats?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, in Whisper, it's the best spec weapon. Beats Voidwaker, beats ZCB. It's pretty good at Muspa. I think it may have lost a little bit of Muspa to ZCB, so you'd still be a little better of a ZCB spec there. But I guess not everyone has a ZCB, to be fair. It does definitely drop off quite a bit once you have like tanky monsters or tanky to mage as the one issue. So yeah, it performs insanely well at low mage defense, but there are a lot of bosses, I guess, that do have kind of higher mage defense. That's why Shadow became a thing, because of so many bosses being tanky to magic. So it might have an issue of that, I guess. But when I look at if all the monsters that do have low mage defense, like I said, beats Voidwaker and potentially beats ZCB in some cases. So
it'd probably be pretty decent, especially if you don't have Shadow because of the 4 times multiplier against Wardens, no? Because at that point you're not really using any specs, so you could send a spec on Warden.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like it was. I feel like depending on how high the invo was, it might lose to Voidwaker. Because I think it loses to Voidwaker if it's like a high enough invo.
Interesting. Okay, that's interesting to know.
because once once your accuracy gets low enough, it's just like the DPS of a spec really goes down fast.
Okay, yeah. Well, maybe the accuracy will be slightly different, but that sounds good. I also wonder with Olm, like if Lightbearer comes into favor a little bit, getting best of kind of doing your hammer spec, but also being able to spec the hand. But I'm sure that can all be calced out.
Yeah, I think even now, like Lightbearer for Mage Hand's nice for, well, at least for CMs. Meta keeps changing. I know for regulars you definitely want just full damage, but
Yeah.
I haven't really calced yeah, I'm trying to remember like a time save, but I kind of forgot how much time save it was on my Mage Hand now. It was, I think it may have been in my video, but I can't remember if I put that in there.
I love this. I would love for it to be like good enough to feel worth doing a raid for. Like I would love it beating ZCB in a lot of cases, but I know you said, Arcane, that the ZCB is very hard to balance around. And
Yeah.
I'm getting that from this conversation.
I don't think like in 100% accuracy situations, the ZCP is like 36 DPS or something insane, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to get close to that, and I think ZCB just is way. I think ZCB is more accurate than it ever should have been. I think it probably just shouldn't have had the 100% increased accuracy on spec, to be honest, and it probably would have been okay.
Or we just completely rework rubies and rip that band-aid off, but that's a whole separate discussion.
That might be.
Because that's the whole
thing.
issue with the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But obviously we're in where we are right now anyway. But yeah, I think where we kind of wanted to sit is like, I think Claws ends up being around 26 or 25 DPS a lot of the time, and like in his good use cases. ZCB obviously peaks at like 36. So I think it being closer to Claws than ZCB is kind of ideal. And obviously there's a lot of targets that if it's just lower health, ZCB is just not good fundamentally, right?
Sure.
So it's like low health targets or low mage defense targets that you wouldn't claw is kind of where I expect this to sit. And we want to make sure the numbers really support that. So if it doesn't have enough accuracy or if it doesn't have enough damage to really fill in that gap, then we'll just need to give it a bit of a buff. I don't think it's far off, but I think it might need a little bit more of a buff.
So Kirby, you mentioned Muspa. So a lot of people, they reset at Muspa, like they get a kill and then they teleport out. But so ZCB 75, right? So maybe you use both. Use ZCB spec and then you kill it fast enough that you're not getting another 75% to use ZCB. So then you use this as well. But then the problem at Muspa would be that it's only 75 health before it swaps. So then you use the spec, you get one shot off, and then it probably switches back to range. So you don't actually get all the damage.
That's changing though soon, right?
That's changing.
Oh yeah, it's
that's changing.
So yeah, you might be able to fit then. You might be able to fit it, actually. Plus you could hold it for a second, depending how long the duration of holding the thing is.
You can hold it. You have any insight on that, Arcane? Like, what is it changing to? Is it like now minimum 5 attacks or something? Like, what's the?
I think it's 4, a minimum of 3 or 4 attacks, and it's hit the damage threshold.
Okay.
So you basically, it just stops you getting like back-to-back swaps in reality.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay.
That was the feedback that we got basically. That just if you max gear, you were just like doing 6-way constantly, and it was just exhausting.
Yeah, it sounds like people will, like when it's range phase off the start, they'll T-bow, then ZCBs because I think range is more damage than mage to do as much damage as possible. It could be a cool thing.
All right.
But yeah, I really like this item.
Should we move on to Zeal? The final reward, which I was a huge fan of, definitely something I've been looking forward to for years now, is a upgrade to piety. Nothing crazy, doesn't need to be anything insane, just an additional 5% on top of piety with the same drain rate, which is interesting, and level 84 prayer to use. So huge fan of this. I talked before the call, I think my only smallest gripe, just because of my OCD, is the fact that defense wasn't also increasing by 5%. Very cool to see this. What are your thoughts, and how did the team eventually kind of like land on this instead of an armor set, just releasing this, which by the way is across the board. We mentioned earlier the fact that melee Inferno speedrunning is going to help there, and just in every other melee situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the most creative reward fundamentally, right? We're just upgrading an existing prior to give more stats. And we knew it needed to be a strong reward that replaced like an entire armor set fundamentally. That plus the mage spec weapon. So yeah, we just identified a reward that didn't really have a good end game progression unlock, and piety obviously you just get from like a mid game quest. So it just felt like the obvious case in that regard. and then we just thought this was like the minimum amount of accuracy and strength we could give before it felt weird. Like I think 3% strength would have been like strong, but it just 3% just feels weird as a number. It doesn't feel right. It just feels like 5% is like the minimum. Arbitrary, I know, but yeah, not much to really say.
I think 5% really was just a solid number because nobody can say it's underpowered. Nobody can really quite say it's overpowered. I mean, it is strong, but like it just the number 5 to claim it's overpowered. It's like, yeah, I think you hit the perfect sweet spot, honestly.
It made for the easiest YouTube thumbnail ever. First upgrade since 2007. It's actually been that long since we've had a better melee pair. Yeah, I really like it.
I'm excited for it.
Is it for all the calc and number people in here? Is it changing Oathplate Torva at all, or are we going to be using that?
You're gonna have
Still.
a Torva helmet with Oathplate body and legs, I believe.
Still, okay.
There is one interesting aspect, and it's actually kind of the case right now. Is in like chambers. If you're in teams and you're getting low defense on the hand, you actually want full Torva, and that's still going to be the case because you will actually get a 54 max hit with the Zeal and full Torva, and you won't get that with Oathplate. I think you need Ult Tor though. You do. So if you're Light Bearer Ring, maybe not.
Also, 60 max hit on bloat with Salve if you do full Torva, which don't is, but.
Insane.
Well, that's interesting, actually.
I love it. I will say, I think I gave you guys at Jagex a little flack one time because you kept saying that your rewards needed to be flashy and unique. And I disagreed with that. And I didn't know where it was coming from. But seeing this and seeing people call it boring made me understand your position a little more. Like, this is the perfect upgrade. It's like meat and potatoes, but it's perfect. And people are still calling it boring. And it's like,
Crazy.
I get where you're coming from more. I take back what I originally said.
Yeah,
This is perfect.
It's a hard one. I don't feel like there's really like a. I mean, there probably shouldn't be. There's no silver bullet. Like fundamentally, like players need to be excited about the reward set, and the excitement comes from so many nebulous different angles. Some of it's just like gimmicks. Some of it's just stats. Some of it's simplicity. Some of it's feeling old school. Some of it's like us trying new things. Like there's so many different angles, and different people have different values, right, in terms of what they care about. But that's why it makes this stuff so hard, is that people just want different things. Like some people still just are going to want an armor set until they die, right? Like it's like I want an armor set regardless of any sort of implications of what that might be. So they just want an armor set. But yeah, I like to think the set has a good amount of like interesting and boring rewards right now. Like it's not overly boring, it's not overly interesting. Maybe that's what raids should be. Raids probably shouldn't be the place where you have gimmicks like left, right, and center. But we've got the run dash, right?
I think it's super interesting. Like the first 3 things we covered are like dual crossbows, a shield that has flat armor plus a reflecting plus the breaker. Jesus, like this is crazy already. And the wand. So.
Yeah, and Zeal is kind of like a armor set on your character, you know?
Yeah.
It's giving you like max hits galore, like 2 to 4 max hits in a lot of cases. On the topic of rewards, this is something I've been thinking about because I think we obviously won't know this until release, right? Everyone's always thinking about what the purple chance will be, how will it feel, how, compared to the existing raids. And having 5 uniques feels like I'm trying to understand how it's going to be, because you're either going to be in a situation where you're trying to go for a mega rare or your last purple and you're going to get like a ton of dupes, or you have to make it like rare because there's only 5. Like I'm that balance with the number of uniques feels like it's going to be difficult to balance for the fact that there's only going to be 5 rewards. You're going to have to inherently make it rarer, I assume. And I'm not sure how that will feel.
Yeah. Answers I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to start looking into that stuff, and that'll come quite late on in the project. I think my gut instincts right now is that, like, it's kind of hard regardless, but yeah, most raids have had almost like a sacrificial lamb, right? Like the scrolls just absorb the weighting, and like that lets us have fairly common purples, which gives you your instant dopamine, even if it's just immediately diminished with the fact you got a scroll or an Avernic or whatever, even though sometimes an Avernic's completely fine, right? Often drop tables have that. Obviously, we had a Avernic, a double scroll, and then TOA had like Library and Fang absorb the weighting as well. This raid doesn't have an obvious one for that. So we could throw one under it. We could go Rondash is really common, like, right? And it has 40% of the weighting. obviously it's going to tank in value then, right? Like, do we want that? Would we rather have common uniques like TOB, but then we have a sacrificial lamb in terms of like it's just one thing that absorbs a lot of the weighting? Maybe we distribute it. Like one idea is like we have like cat breaker at the top, crossbows just below that. This is like weighting. And then the remaining 3 are all equal weighting. So the bottom 3 absorb all the weighting.
Yeah.
And then it's like you're getting them, but you're getting those fairly common. Like maybe that's almost like just the commonality at that point. But in terms of the general purple rate, I don't know. And like there's so many things that come into that. The regular drop table, like resources factor into that. Anything else you can get on there. How fast the raid is to complete, obviously, is its own factor. You're technically fighting 1 less boss per raid than TOB in raids 4. You're 5 rather than 6, and I don't think we've got anything as long as Nilo. So the raid might actually end up feeling a bit quicker, but I think the final boss of raids 4 is probably going to be longer than Verzik. So I don't know how that'll end up feeling like. So there's a lot of question marks there. I don't really know what it'll end up feeling like, but at the end of the day, we need to make sure it feels right in terms of like how frequently you get purples and how frequently you get something you're disappointed by, I guess, on the drop table. How long it takes to get the mega rare and everything else.
I guess my thoughts on. Go ahead.
I was going to say the most difficult things of all this is that we have camps of players, obviously more often than not Ironman, but technically mains as well, that want it to feel right from like a player progression point of view. And we've got the economy. And these two things are completely battling with each other. The economy doesn't care about obviously the player progression and actively wants it to be different things in reality to actually support a like healthy GP per hour long term and whatever else, and like making sure they got value long term. Players are generally upset when items go really cheap. But obviously, if we made everything really rare to then make them more expensive, players are also going to be unhappy, right? So it's kind of just a fundamental problem we're just never going to be able to solve. We just need to try and we need to thread that needle, really, and find that gap that kind of appeases both players enough in reality. But that's where we often see friction on drop tables, right? Is when we've tried to thread that needle and failed. We've gone too far in one direction. Because it is just really difficult, and it's a never-moving target as well. But we'll try our best. And if we don't, we'll change it to sweep up. I'm sure.
Just give it.
Yeah, my only thoughts with only 5 uniques is I just want to spend as much time as I can doing the raid. So having more uniques to go for is like a good thing in my book. But I guess, yeah, like you said, there's issues with that too.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, on the point that we mentioned earlier about like ornament kits and stuff, there's just so much room to have like so much more replayability when it comes to like pimping out your crossbow color. Like you will do a lot of these trying to go for that new like ornament kit, maybe from the you know, the CM version of it or whatever. Or I just think there's so many other routes to go down, like where if you want to fully pimp out the gear with different ornament kits to really show that, okay, you've mastered this place and like you've spent a ton of time in it. I just don't think that the uniques need to be outrageously rare. And I think the team pretty much understands that at this point. It feels like the more recent raids have and the more just recent content has really kind of valued people's time a little bit more. They're not trying to go down the nightmare route anymore, which is a healthy thing in my view.
General vibe check.
Yeah.
I think TOB is a reasonable grind for an Iron Man.
Yeah.
I think TOA is too common. And Invocations obviously just promoted that, right? In terms of like we wanted to reward the player for more difficult content. But that obviously just shortens the grind fundamentally, and there's just a lot of fundamental problems with Invocations. So I think it's probably going to be using like TOB as a base in terms of like expectations, and obviously then it needs to take in the context of what this raid is compared to TOB and all the nuances that might have. So
yeah, that's interesting because if it's similar time to complete, let's say hypothetically to TOB, then you'd still be getting less purples overall, or there'd be the sacrificial lamb, like you said, right? Like there'd be something to balance that out.
Yeah, that have even more of a weighting or less purples, right? One or the other.
Yeah, I see. I also like on the point of TOA, like I completed TOA. I'm still not done chambers, and I've done like 3 times. And part of me wishes like I don't really have too much of a reason to go back to TOA, right? And so it's nice to find that kind of. It's not just like economy or making it satisfying, but I did get ultimately decently lucky because that's what happened in my account. But you know, TOA definitely pulled some of the weight here.
Are you saying you can enjoy playing the content without getting the drops? What the?
Like only
That
so
doesn't happen.
much. Only so much. Jeez.
No, I think more people need to just sit down and enjoy the fact that they're doing top or chambers. Like you said, you want a reason to go back to TOA, and for a lot of people, it feels like they can't because they don't need drops there. Yeah, I think cosmetics are like Sae Bae said, cosmetics are a really good route to go because you can make those as rare as you want or as challenging as you want, and it's just for a cosmetic, so people can't really complain too much about it.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that we should have had a 4K cape on TOA.
No.
Yeah, 5K
Actually-
maybe.
I'm actually okay with that, but I don't like the CM difference. Like
Yeah.
I think if you've gotten
Oh, boy.
2,000 chambers of any type, you should get the cape. Like just
I don't like
boy.
I would do 2,000 raids for a very cool cosmetic that I could attach to something and actually wear in end game.
Like
I
a
think the
max
capes
cape.
are kind of just
Yeah.
just nothing
Bro,
burgers
we
for
got to get
people.
the max cape where it still functions as a max cape, no other additional stats, but it has that look of it. So you can just roll around with your 2K cape or your 1K LMS wins or your champion's cape, but it still acts as a max cape. Ugh, I want that.
Yeah, I do like that. Also, someone mentioned hard mode. Is there any plans to release this with the hard mode in mind, or is it down the line?
It'll be most likely down the line, yeah. We've got a lot of ideas, but I don't think we should launch with it. I feel like it's probably kind of cleaner to go without, see how it goes, how it develops, and I think we can probably make a better hard mode or challenge mode or whatever that ends up being with all that context and like feedback in mind.
Sure.
On that topic, another vibe check. What do you think we should do for a hard mode in terms of rewards? Because like I feel like top hard mode kind of missed the boat a bit in terms of like having these like really rare cosmetics. I feel like I've mainly seen resentment from that grind than anything else.
I love it, but I'm usually in the minority there. I'd love the rare cosmetics. I think it's a perfect place to let endgame players who are already no life in this game feel like they're working towards something. I get why people would be sad that they don't have it in like 200 AC. But
You got the Cox approach where it's like theoretically supposed to be better jobs and then eventually got the cosmetics, right? And obviously you can argue better drops or not, but I think that's sort of what it was supposed to be aiming for. And then hard mode top is mainly just cosmetics. Like there's not really a monetary incentive to do it. The weighting thing is almost irrelevant. And I'm kind of musing with the idea of just if we do a hard mode for Raids 4, that it's like really hard and it's like a one-time completion kind of thing. And then you get a cosmetic from that rather than it being a grind. Obviously, that is a much shorter grind fundamentally, but we can then make it like really, really hard.
I actually like that.
I'm torn on it because I do like the challenge stuff, but like TOA, I kind of wish it had just been like a dust from a 500 rather than being over in 4 raids. But again, I think I'm in the minority a lot of the time when it comes to that stuff. I like Travag said, I just like having a reason to go back and do a bunch of content.
You go for it.
I was gonna say, what might feels like maybe one time for a cosmetic, but maybe the chance of uniques is like better if you're skilled enough to consistently clear a content. Maybe your reward of like slightly more efficient purples per hour or something as an incentive for people to try to get good enough to like consistently do the hard mode could be interesting.
I do get the logic there. The worries we have with that is that if we try to make something really hard, probably not going to be that fun to grind.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want the most efficient way to play the game to not be the most fun way to play the raid.
That's my thoughts as well. Like it's most people enjoy grinding normal TOB. I know there are some exceptions where they want to do the hard modes, but it's a lot of the time just because they want to get those kits or whatever. But like as soon as there's no other reward in the equation, most people just want to have the more chill experience and just run them and have fun and just grind purples and just try to maximize efficiency in the normal difficulty of it, generally speaking. And I do like the one and done thing. And then if people are really obsessed with just running that, they still can, but it's pretty much the same, purple chance across the board. So it's not like you're really getting much.
I want to talk a little bit about the raid difficulty. So I love the idea in the first week you wipe, you wipe, right? It should just be that way the whole time, I think. I think, so here's like a problem, right? So in TOA, right, if you use the invocations that you respawn, right? So you use your supplies the first time going in, then you die, you don't wipe, you come back, but then you don't even have the supplies to continue. So like, I don't know if that's a thing in the raid that you can get supplies back to continue, but in TOA, it doesn't ever like work.
I don't want to say anything on it because it's not fully formalized,
Fair.
but we
Fair.
have had more thoughts on this, so
Fair.
we're probably not going to go with exactly what we previously proposed, but we're going to restart that dialogue at some point and see what people think.
Yeah, it needs to be talked about again.
What, and you guys mentioned you're going to have the in-game, we'll call them in-game sims for lack of a better term, but you're going to be able to practice each boss out of context without a risk of dying. And I think
Right.
that goes hand in hand with having a very risky, if you wipe kind of raid like Tob.
Mhm.
Again, my opinion, but yeah, I do think that goes hand in hand with that. And like what Travis said, no one really runs the TOAs where they have anything but hardcore on because it feels so bad to start a room without supplies.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd rather
But
rage quit,
also-
log out.
But also, if this is labeled the hardest raid, it should just be a full wipe.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
with you there, especially because of the practice modes. I think there's practice modes, especially if there's supplies supplied to you, which I imagine, after Blood Moon Rises, I wouldn't be in doubt if they, had some sort of chest with just like, here, walk around with these supplies.
I'll end it by saying, I know it's a business and you don't want only like the top players doing it and no one else doing it. I know TOA is probably the most successful raid, even though it's the lowest in my opinion. But it's just a weird like thing to play with,
Yeah,
But
I
you
get it,
you can make it the hardest raid, and like what Joe was saying, with the accessibility of being able to practice the boss, right? So you
Yeah.
can have that difficulty of TOB, but have the accessibleness of another raid, and I think that's a fine. I think players should be able to get their skill level that high. The hardest part about TOB is you're teaching everybody each room, and maybe they're getting a little bit further, and then you get to Verzik. It's like, okay, here's what we have to do at Verzik, which is like
P1, P2,
80% of what they
P3.
need to learn. Yeah,
We've
where it's
all
like,
done that
Yeah.
conversation.
Yes,
Like, all
we
right,
have.
you gotta lock in for this. And
So
then
it can be-
they just die P1.
It can be harder
Yeah.
than Verzik, but I'd like to not take 20 minutes to get people there to then have their 1st crack where I know they're gonna fall.
No,
Yeah.
I'm fully on the same page, and we'll definitely get that conversation going again, because I think there's more value to be had there.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, appreciate you doing this with us too. It's cool.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
fun. I've really enjoyed it.
That's
Yeah.
so awesome of you of doing that. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
This is definitely a treat for all of us, and especially for me, all of you guys planning your day around this call, that means a lot. So thank you all for joining me again. For those listening, we just had a crazy discussion here for over 2 hours, so leave your comments down below and be sure to like the video as well if you enjoy these video calls. I'm going to have all of these guys' links down in the description, so please do me a favor and drop them a subscription on their channel because they have some great content, and I think you guys will not want to miss it. So anyway, thank you all, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.